Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our regular council meeting for Tuesday, October 3rd. And I'll call this meeting to order at 12:32. We'll start off with a territorial land acknowledgement. Before our meeting gets underway, I would like to formally recognize the traditional keepers of this land and specifically our neighbors of the Alderville First Nation with a formal territorial acknowledgement. We respectively acknowledge the township of Alma-Culliman is located on the Mississaugan-Anishinaabe territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississaugan-Anishinaabe. The township of Alma-Culliman respectively acknowledges that the Mississaugan Nation are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and the integrity for generations to come. Move on to item 3, moment of silence for our fallen soldiers and citizens. Thank you, everyone. Just so everybody's aware, the procedural bylaw identifies how and when members of the public may take part in a council meeting. Our regular council meetings are open to the public and they are encouraged to attend. To speak at a regular meeting, a request for delegation form must be submitted to the clerk. These forms are available on our website. Public meetings are open to the public. They allow members of the public to address council without the need to pre-register their request. An example of a public meeting is a planning meeting, where land use planning applications are reviewed and council seeks input from the public. Closed sessions may occur during a council meeting to discuss confidential matters as identified in the Municipal Act, Section 239. Members of the public are not permitted in these meetings. Moving on to item 4, disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Deputy Mayor.
Mayor Logal, I have a declaration to put forward today. It has to do with both open and closed meetings. The closed meeting item would be 6.1, and the open meeting would be item number 10.1. The 10.1 would pertain to the library board portion of the auditor's report. And the reason for the litigation is litigation with the reason for the pecuniary interest declaration is litigation with the library board. Mayor Logal, I will pass this to Madam Clerk. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to move on to item 5, approval of the agenda for Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023. Be it resolved that the agenda for the regular council session of Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023 be approved as circulated. Can mover and a seconder? Oh, pardon me, and the addendum. Is that it? Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, second by Councillor Booth. Any questions? All in favor? Motion is carried. Then we're going to move on to item 6, which is a closed session. And I'll read the resolution. Usually council goes into a closed session towards the end of the meeting. At today's meeting, however, council will hold its closed session now prior to the items listed on the open agenda. For those of you here attending in person, and for those of you who may be attending via the Zoom, I estimate that the council will be in the closed session for approximately 1/2 hour, but it may be less. I will now read the closed motion to recess and go into a closed session. Thank you, Nancy. Be it resolved that the council of the township of Alma-Calderman will recess to go into a closed session under section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 to consider 2A, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and 2D, litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality or local board relative to the litigation matter with the library board. And further, that the acting CAO, the clerk, and the deputy clerk remain in attendance at 12:38 p.m. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Ainsworth, seconded by Councillor Booth. All in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, we're back, and thank you everyone for sitting through our closed meeting, or not being able to sit through our closed meeting, I guess is probably the right way to pronounce that. Motion to rise from a closed session report. Be it resolved, the council of the township of Alma-Calderman reconvene to the open session of the council meeting at 1:15 p.m. and further, that the confidential resolution moved in the closed session regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal and or local board employees, and litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipal or local board relative to the litigation matter with the library board are hereby referred to this open session of council for adoption. Mover and the seconder. Moved by Councillor O'Neill and seconded by Councillor Booth. All in favor? Motion's carried. Next, we have item 7.1. It's approval of the minutes. Be it resolved that the special council session minutes of May 2nd and June the 12th, 2023 be approved. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Ainsworth. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. Yep. The next item is item 8, business arising from the previous minutes. And we have 8-1 capital projects report, supplemental report to the September 19th, 2023 regarding capital projects report. And it's suggesting here that a report from the acting CEO will be included for council's consideration on a future meeting agenda. Item 9. Okay. Were there any other issues from those minutes? Okay, seeing none, that'll be recorded. Next, we have a delegation. And we have a delegation from Nancy and John Corcoran regarding the Bird's Eye View Game Farm. Please come forward. Good afternoon.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Logal, Deputy Mayor Stover, and council members. My name is Nancy Corcoran, and I stand before you today as a deeply concerned member of this community. My husband, John, and our family have invested countless years of hard work and dedication into building, owning, and operating Whispering Springs Wilderness Retreat in our township. Our roots here run deep. We moved to this area over 40 years ago, and we have been actively involved in shaping the growth and prosperity of this region. Throughout our journey, we have contributed to the fabric of this township in meaningful ways. We played an integral role in building and operating St. Anne's Country Inn before its transformation into a spa. Additionally, we founded and managed the CJC bottling plant, providing employment to 250 local residents for over 15 years. Our commitment to this community is unwavering, and our pride in where we live has always been paramount. We find ourselves at a crossroad where we must turn to our local leadership for guidance and advocacy. The imminent opening of a game farm so close to Whispering Springs Wilderness Retreat is not only a threat to our business, but also to the tranquility and safety of our community as a whole. We have invested our hearts, our energy, and our resources into creating a peaceful haven at Whispering Springs. It's a place where guests come to escape the pressures of daily life, to experience nature's beauty, and to find solace in the arms of this natural wonderland. The proposed game farm, with its associated hunting activities, jeopardizes this harmony. The very essence of what we have built and nurtured is now under threat. We have constructed a list to illustrate the total extent of the negative impact that this will have on our business and community if the 1516 Telephone Road Game Farm is granted permission to operate. Bird's Eye View has not followed the proper protocol in informing neighbors and discussing safety concerns. The zoning at 1516 Telephone Road is rural and does not permit a recreational game farm. The owners of 1516 Telephone Road do not reside at this location, and therefore the detrimental effects of the game farm do not impact them as it does the surrounding neighborhood. The fencing around the property perimeter is either non-existent or severely decayed. This poses a serious threat to the safety and noise conditions of Whispering Springs. Many neighbors will move out of this area due to the stress and emotional damage. Property values will plummet. 75 jobs in the tourism sector will disappear. Camp Moonlight, which is dedicated to families with children with disabilities and supported by Whispering Springs and their vendors, will be shut down. Whispering Springs raises funds for disabled children's therapy, benefiting many children. These funds will cease to exist. Many homes with small children will be too frightened to let their children play outside, causing physical and emotional damage. 2 managed forests bordering 1516 Telephone Road will force wildlife and endangered species to relocate. The potential for dead pheasant carcasses and scattered lead shots to contaminate the water system poses an environmental concern, especially given the presence of an environmentally sensitive watercourse on 1516 Telephone Road. The question of responsibility for the environmental cleanup remains unanswered. The livelihood of many employees who may lose their jobs is in jeopardy. Responsibility for any harm caused by strayed bullets remains unclear. How will the township address the steady stream of calls related to the noise bylaw? Who will be accountable for police checks of PALs and the illegal transport of firearms, or the legal transport of firearms? What about the damage to the wildlife in the area? Bird's Eye View Game Farm's constant gunfire will affect livestock, families, and businesses up to 4 kilometers away. The more John and I review the proximity of our property to the proposed game farm, the more extreme safety hazards we are discovering. We have a large propane tank located a mere 16 feet from the proposed game farm property line, along with several other tent accommodations that are equipped with multiple propane tanks. That the potential for a stray bullet to hit one of these tanks and cause life-threatening explosion or fire is very real. In addition, nearly all of our accommodation are tents and would not prevent a stray bullet from piercing the fabric and potentially injuring or killing a guest or an employee of our establishment. We are one of the township's largest tourist destinations and employers, and are so utterly disturbed that this level of risk is even being considered. We are not willing to expose our employees, our children, or guests to this level of risk, and will proceed with whatever means necessary to prevent this from happening. We are here today not just as business owners, but as residents who love our township, who have raised our family here, and who believe the potential of this place to flourish while maintaining its harmony. We are not here to lay blame, but to seek your support, to rally the strength of our community leadership, to stand as a formidable shield against the encroaching threat. Mayor Local, Deputy Mayor Stover, esteemed council members, we implore you to listen to our voices and to champion our cause. We ask that you leverage the power of our local leadership to protect the interests of the community you represent. We feel that protections need to be put in place for the businesses that already exist in the township. We would not have built Whispering Springs, let alone invest every dollar in our name to a business that would be jeopardized so quickly and without any notice. We have invested years of our lives following the rules and slowly, painstakingly moving through the comprehensive regulatory process to establish a successful tourist establishment. We believe that it is you and you alone that ultimately have the power to protect the hardworking local businesses of this township by modifying the bylaws to put protections in place so that new businesses cannot just come in and destroy what has been such a great benefit to our community. The looming opening of Bird's Eye View Game Farm is a ticking time bomb to potential disruption, danger, and distress for our community. We believe in the power of unity and we believe in the strength of community. There is a Supreme Court ruling in Canada that maintained an injunction preventing a game farm hunting preserve from operating close to residents based on noise nuisance. It included hunting activities, i.e. shotgun shots produced by visiting hunters that disturb neighbors' ability to enjoy their own land. We stand here before you today, not just as Nancy and John Corcoran, but as the voices echoing the sentiments of countless individuals who share our concerns. We urge you to join us in this fight to reclaim the sense of security, serenity, and promise that this township has always offered. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your dedication to our community's well-being. Together, we can safeguard the future we all deserve. My husband, John, just wants to.
I just wanted to say, make no mistake that this is a business. All you have to do is go to the Bird's Eye View Game Farm website and look at their literature. They talk about 5,000 birds, that's over $100,000 in revenue. They talk about shuttling people to and from the hunt. They talk about sales of ammunition. They talk about hired guides and guide dogs. They talk about the rental of property through acquisition. I understand that they're working on overnight accommodation for the hunters. As Nancy and I sat here waiting for our opportunity to speak, I was next door just thinking, you know, if I wanted to skirt all the aspects of opening up the business properly, if I was a restaurant, what would I do? I'd call my chef an independent contractor whose hobby was cooking. I'd call my waitresses, staff that works for donations. I'd sell my food at the curb, raw, trying to circumvent the laws that are in place to run an established business. That's exactly what Bird's Eye is trying to do. And I just urge you not to be bamboozled by their fancy talk of how they sell their birds at the doorstep. And the so-called people that buy the birds can do whatever they want with them. I also understand that during their hunt, I have direct contact with people who have gone there. When the birds cross the boundary line, the farmers shoot across the road.
The hunters.
The hunters shoot across the boundary. They say that there's never been any problems out of the Bird's Eye View. One of the guides had one of their dogs shot, one of the hunting dogs. You know, first it's animals, if that mistake can happen so easily, what's to say the next time it's not just going to be a person who gets shot? Please consider it and make the result. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
I'll read the resolution. Yeah. I was gonna read the resolution first. Before you leave, do you mind coming back just in case there's any questions? Before I do that, I've got to read the resolution. Whereas the council of the township of Alma Caldovan heard the delegation from Nancy and John Corcoran, residents of Grafton, regarding Bird's Eye View Game Farm. Therefore, be it resolved that council received their delegation for information. Could I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councillor Ainsworth. Are there any questions for Mr. and Mrs. Corcoran? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you again.
Next, we have a delegation from Terry Miles. It's regarding lights on Arid Street, the condition of Charlotte and Arid Streets, and pedestrian safety on County Road 2. Mr. Miles, welcome.
Thank you. It's my first time here, so this is all new.
You might have, if you don't mind, you might have to speak into the mic because
Okay.
there's
Is it-
people
Is that
attending
better?
on virtually. Yes, I'm
Oh,
sure it
okay.
is.
Yeah, I live on 184 Aird. I've been here for 5 years. Love the town and the neighborhood. I had some concerns as my neighbor to the north. They had their car stolen from the driveway. So about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And we have dogs and we sometimes have to come home late when I was working. I'm retired now. So I called the township at that time and asked about getting some street lights on Aird, as there's now about 11 or 12 homes north of Harndon. So there's enough homes, I believe, to make it a concern. I was told to get a hold of a Troy Gilmore, who I believe doesn't work for the anymore. And his response to me was not a problem. The poles are already pre-wired. All we have to do is put them up. And it was kind of left at that. I just expected eventually they would come up, and here we are 5 years later and nothing's happened. I did get a hold of Councilman Greg Booth at Remembrance Day celebration, and I ran it by him, and he did call me a few months later, but nothing's happened. And my concern is I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. If it's something that is just not feasible or not in the cards, or you don't want to do that, that's the way it is. I'd just rather be told up front that something we're not interested in and leave it at that. But waiting 5 years, I think, if you don't come and say something, the current council may not have known that, but and
If I
again-
could interrupt you just for a second,
Sure,
because
sure.
you mentioned you don't want to waste your time, and I don't want to waste your time neither. Brian, do you have a comment on this? This is Brian McMillan, who's our Public Works Manager.
and I have talked to him, and I thank you for the wood that I got from him.
Have you got a comment, Brian?
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor Longo and council members and delegation for Mr. Miles. I can touch on the streetlights. The process has begun on the streetlights, and the actual construction of the lights going on is supposed to take place. I believe it's this Friday. It's in my departmental update, sorry. But it was a process that we had to go through with Hydro One to have the joint use of the poles for our streetlights on them, because they own the poles. Long story short, Gary, Mr. Miles, there's 3 lights going to go up from Hardin Road right up to the end of Bear Street, every other pole. And the last street light would be on the last pole. So that you can see that hopefully lit up within the next 2 weeks.
That's great news. That's good. I appreciate that. And because when you come in off of Lyle on Aird there, that's about a 20-foot straight section, then a 90-degree angle turn. And at nighttime, it's pitch black. And it is a bit of a concern. I appreciate that I know that that's happening. And I'm sure all the neighbors, because I talked to a lot of them, will be very pleased to hear that.
I think
Yes.
it's been in the works for a little while, Brian, but correct me if I'm wrong, but it does take a while with Ontario Hydro.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I understand that. But that's good to see that something is actually
Okay,
happening.
we're going to move on to your second concern.
Yes. Again, I have dogs. I walk the dogs every day on the streets there. It just seems to be getting worse and worse. And in my deposition I gave you, I call it the town proper, as Aird and is pretty much in the little town of Grafton. And as a resident of the town, I feel that you want to make sure, I know you guys do some stuff on Highway 2 and you try and make it look nice, but that street is getting patch over patch over patch. And in some areas, I noticed at the Grafton Inn Campbell House, when we have a strong rain, half their driveways down the street on air because they're not paved, it just flows all the way out there. I know they've done some repair work in the last month or two, putting more patches on. Now Aird isn't as bad as Charlotte, and granted, I don't live on Charlotte, but it's really bad. Like it's just falling apart. And I just think, now again, 3 years ago, I inquired again through the town, and I was told we're in the queue about 5 years. So that was 3 years ago. I'm hoping that we're in the queue now, maybe for a year, in the next year or two, that something will be done, and it will be at asphalt. I know they did some type of other repairs where they just laid the gravel down and kind of put some oil down and let everybody drive on it. But when I moved here, I have an old 65 Mustang, and geez, I just don't want to drive it on a gravel road, to be honest. I was
think,
hoping.
to respond to that, Brian I know he's got a roads needs analysis study being done right now. Brian, am I correct? And it's going to be done before the end of the year? And that basically gives Brian recommendations on where we should be spending our public works meeting.
I know
money
there's
next.
only so much money. I get
Yeah.
that, but
So I can't tell you, or Brian, maybe you can help me, but I don't think we can tell you right now what the plan is for the next couple of years.
yeah, it's just too that with the new subdivision going in north of me, off Lyle, I know traffic is going to get a lot busier once that moves along. So I'm hoping that, that they get the street fixed before it's really bad shape. And again, for the look of the town, that you want to make sure that people do come through here, that it shows that we care about our town and we try to maintain it as best we can.
Agree. Brian, do you have a quick comment on that or no?
Just a quick one, just I'll mention, it is on our list, currently in our rosacea for the next 5 years, and that's going back from a few years ago. But the recommendation moving forward, when it does come, it would be pavement that you would be recommending. It is an urban street, similar to what we did over on sorry, on yes. Yeah, Feather Row and stuff like that. And other ones we're doing, we did in the north as well and stuff like that. So, but again, I think I can't speak as far as timeline right now. The needs are great in the township. There is other areas in the township that are in similar dire needs of repaving or resurfacing, but it'd be for our future council budget to talk about it again.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Go ahead, Terry, with your third.
Yeah, the last thing was, again, as I walk my dogs every day, I have to go get the mail, and I noticed you guys actually had somebody scraping lines off the crosswalk there. I know you put some signs up, which is a great idea, because previously, I got to tell you, you're taking your life in your hands sometimes trying to cross that road. Most people don't go 50 clicks an hour along there. They just don't. But and again, I'm noticing now with those signs, at least a few people are stopping. But the other day there was myself and another woman waiting to cross, and a school bus just whipped right through. Like it is a bit dangerous there, and you just hate to have someone get, either injured or killed and then say, geez, we really got to do something about this. So, because there's really no other place to cross other than if you just, give a head turn and make a quick dash for it. So, again, I appreciate you putting the signs. It would be nice, maybe even if they had to put a cop there. I mean, if you give a dozen tickets for running a pedestrian crossing, it might wake some people up, or even a flashing yellow light or something, just because people just aren't looking at it. I'd say right now about 70% go right through, maybe 30% are stopping. So, and again, I know a lot of the people aren't from around here, they're just passing through, but I just don't want to see myself or anybody else get picked off or something, because people are I don't look, I mean, the signs are there, but I obviously look and I wait until it's clear, but.
Yeah, just so you know, that is a county road and not owned by the municipality.
So is that Northumberland County's responsibility?
However, we are working with Northumberland County, who have made some of those improvements, but they really are planning on doing a proper study to count how many cars are going by every hour and how many people walk across every hour, because they have, they showed me and I can't quote them or nothing like that, but they did show me the different diagrams and everything else that show how many cars per hour. And if you can make the combination, the calculation says that you should have this type of crossing versus, you know, a much different one.
Fair enough.
So-
I think to do an assessment. I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is
So,
fair.
so I can tell you they are working on it, and Dave and I were over there yesterday across the road, and we got lucky. We were one of the 30%.
That stopped.
Let's stop for, but I do agree it's an issue, and we need to you know, put on better better pathway or on the road, as well as perhaps a few officers in the area to remind people of
Yeah,
that.
and also give you kudos on building that asphalt walkway around the arena. That's a lot of people use that. It's great for walking the dogs. It's a safe area. You can now access the walking trails without going through 4 inches of water if it rains. So
Yeah.
that was a good thing. I'm happy with that. That works out well.
I miss you. You must go after. I go first thing in the morning on that pathway.
Yeah. I go at different times. I'm up at 5:30. So
Oh, well, maybe we have bumped into one.
we might. Anyways, thank you very much. You've addressed what I wanted to know. Hopefully by the winter time, we'll see some lights up on air. That would be nice. And the street will just, I guess, play that by ear and see how it.
Well, ask us, you know, come back and ask us 6 months from now, because we get the report done. It may say that 2 years, 3 years, and we'll have an answer for you.
Perfect. I appreciate that. All right. Thank you very much.
I'll just read the resolution. Whereas the council of the township of Elmwood Colderman heard the delegation from Terry Miles, a resident of Grafton, regarding the lack of streetlights on Ayers Street north of Harnden Drive, and the road conditions on Charlotte Street and Ayers Street, and the pedestrian safety concerns related to County Road 2 in front of the Grafton Inn. Therefore, it be resolved that council receive this for information. Moved by Councillor Booth, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. All in favor? Motion's carried. Terry, thank you very much for expressing your.
Thank you very much for listening.
More than welcome. Next, we're going to have our audit report and presentation. And I'm not sure if Nicole wants to introduce Richard or not, but Richard Staninga, long time no talking. Welcome to Elmwood Colderman.
Yeah, so I am not Dwayne Potter. I'm Richard Staginga from Baker Tilly. So I just, and I'll be here, presenting, the audit results and the financial results for, the municipality for the year ended 2022. Now I do know that, within your agenda, there are a number of documents associated with this, but I was just going to run through the PowerPoint presentation. Just so you're aware, you are required.
Have you met everybody, Richard, over the years?
I've met
I've met a
Richard before.
I would say 60% of the council.
Okay.
Yes.
Then you haven't met probably Mary Catherine, would be my guess,
Good afternoon. Yes.
and Councilor Ainsworth.
Good afternoon. Nice to meet you. So yes, under the municipal act, you have to follow the public sector accounting guidelines, or more commonly known as PSAB. So they are fairly involved and quite unique set of financial statements, even for accountants sometimes. So please feel free to ask any questions. And of course, they are presented in a different format than how you actually set your tax rate budget. So I'll try to highlight those differences too as we go through. So then first off, within the draft audited financial statements, on the following page, you'll see the one-page excerpt of the auditor's report. So the auditor's report is our report on the financial statements. And it is a 2-page document, but the second paragraph on page 1 is what we consider to be the important paragraph that that in our opinion, the accompanying consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the township of Alderman at December 31st, 2022, and the results of its operations and cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards, or more commonly known as PSAB, as I mentioned earlier. So that is your standard, clean, unqualified auditor's report. As well too, please note, you'll see, I think the sixth or seventh word there is the word consolidated. So the numbers we look at include both the operations of the township itself as well as the library board. So it's just a summary of the auditor's report. Next, we come along to just to give you an idea of some of the audit procedures that we do complete while we're here looking at your books. And of course, the main thing is to gather the evidence to provide our audit opinion on your financial results. So that we do that by looking at your council minutes, and of course, a lot of testing as well of source documentations, and that involves, as I said, looking at the documents, comparing things for analytical review, either to budget or to prior year, and as well too, we audit a lot of other municipalities. So with our knowledge there, that knowing the trends and the type of things that are going on in the municipal environment, we do somewhat know what to expect in most circumstances, and as well too, to looking at the estimates that are made by management, and as well too, most of your estimates here would relate to the life of your tangible capital assets and things such as that, determining your amortization. And we do that by looking at your various systems and related internal controls for both the inflows being your revenues, your outflows being your disbursements and your payroll, and then how you adjust things being your journal entries. We do that through a combination of both actual testing and then using data analytics as well, so that we run your data through various analytic procedures, so that we then focus our tests on things that might look unique or odd or of course significant dollar value as well. So overall, the audit is complete pending council approval of the financial statements, receipt of signed representation letter, as well as receipt of legal letters. Overall, there were no significant difficulties encountered during the course of our audit, and no changes to our plan or disagreements with management, and excellent cooperation from your staff and management. Overall, there was one uncorrected item. So as auditors, we do keep a little scorecard of any differences we might find that haven't been adjusted. And then, of course, we compare that to something that we calculate in the audit industry being materiality based, and that's purely based on a percentage for most municipalities of their normal recurring revenue. So then when we calculate that number and compare that to the items that weren't adjusted, we determine whether, well, we can issue a clean auditor's report because the item's too large, but in your case, the amount is fairly small, but it's above our threshold to report, and it just relates to the interest on your debentures that you have two debentures now, one for the fire hall and the new one for the Public Works Edition. And of course, you only pay them twice a year, so the interest that was accruing from the last payment date to the end of December hasn't been recorded. So and as well, when you look at the schedule, I think this year the number was around 23,000. Last year's number was around 18,000. So the net number's around 4,000. It's just the fact you're not missing anything. It's just the number should be on this side of December 31st or that side of December 31st, but it's being presented the way you budgeted. So as a result, then we have no issues with it, but we are just obligated to make you aware of that. And then next, coming along to actual some numbers. So within PSAB, you are required to report your assets being either financial assets and non-financial assets. So financial assets are items that are cash or can be turned into cash, ideally. And then your non-financial assets would be your tangible capital assets, like your roads and your buildings and those type of things that you don't normally turn around and convert to cash because you don't sell them. Ideally, if you could sell a road,
107.
yeah. I'm sure you wouldn't mind doing that. Yeah, but yeah, so I mean, that's the main difference there. So, so overall, your cash remains fairly consistent with the prior year. You did complete a lot during the year, but in the end, it all remained fairly consistent. And that's the components of that is that you have about $5.5 million in reserves and about $2.3 million in deferred revenue obligatory reserve funds. So that means you have all of your reserves in cash and as well as most of your obligatory reserve funds. So that's why your cash balance is where it's at. You have a small investment continuing to carry forward. Your accounts receivable, you can see there it's up a fair bit from the prior year, and majority of that is all related to the HST rebate that you're entitled to get. And which of course, then they get filed after the year end. And of course, with the large addition put on the Public Works building, you had a lot more expenditures that would attract HST, which means your rebate would be higher. So that's the main change there. Your taxes receivable, you can see there that in 2021, they were the fairly low, the lowest point in the last 5 years, whereas they did increase in 2022, but still overall, when you include penalty and interest, the 2022 amount is 8.37% of the total levy. So that's still considered to be within the low risk range set by the ministry. So no issues there. So the one thing to keep in mind too, though, you pay the county and the school boards every quarter, regardless of whether you've collected the money from the ratepayer. So you are the banker in this situation. So it's always good to keep an eye on that so that this number is not getting too high. But as I said, you're still in the low risk range there. And then the following slide just gives you a bar chart of where that is at. And then next slide just shows who you owe money to. So under PSAB, there's no distinction between current and long-term. It's just these are the amounts you owe to others. First off is your accounts payable and accrued liabilities with some construction going on. At the end, accruals for that, your accounts payable did increase. Your trade payables went up at the end of the year, but also within there, your deposits you have from developers are in there. Items such as regular accruals for both salaries and related items as well too. There's about $229,000 from ratepayers who have credit balances on their accounts. So for financial statement purposes, they get moved out of your reducing your taxes receivable into payables. So therefore, those are the major components there. Next, we have something unique for most accounting is your deferred revenue obligatory reserve funds, which represents about $1.9 million in development charges. The federal gas tax or Canada Community Building Fund, as it's known now, for about $300,000, and parkland fees for about $60,000. So this is different in the fact that you've collected these monies and these monies are sitting in your bank account. It's just that they don't become revenue until you use them in accordance with the requirements that are placed on those monies. So, yeah, like this year you collected in the past you collected development charges, but you used 300,000 of that for the new public works facility. And so therefore that balance remained fairly consistent year to year. You didn't use as much gas tax as you received, so the balance went up slightly. So these are items, when you take a look at the reserves of about 5.5 million, that number there, the 2.3, almost gives you what you have in your bank accounts. So that's why you get to that balance. Your other deferred revenue, a majority of that is related to some grants that you've received but haven't fully spent yet. And then the one big noticeable change here, of course, is your increasing your long-term debt as you borrowed the $3 million for the Public Works addition, but still then paying off your previous debenture, I believe, for the library and another public works.
Library was paid for, I believe. I think this is the fire hall.
Sorry, yes, but there was one paid off, the original one that was split.
Yeah, there was a roads one and the library was paid off about 2020 or 21.
It actually finished in 2022, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's, so right now, all you have left is the $3 million for the new public works facility, and the balance is for the fire hall. And then, of course, you can see there that the 5-year graph of that, and you can see there with the additions for both the fire hall debt and the public works debt, the yellow bar has been increasing, but of course, as your assets age, they are expensive to replace, but you are required to do that. So then the following page is just showing your breakdown of what your net financial assets are. And you can see there that there's a little less than about a $3 million change there, and that's all entirely related to the $3 million in additional debt. But then as well too, when you look at your non-financial assets and your tangible capital assets, of course, you got about a $3 million increase there. So basically it's flipped from above the line in net financial assets down to tangible capital assets. And then you still have some prepaid expenses and some inventories of sand and salt that you will utilize moving forward. Then the following slide gives you a bit of a walkthrough and reconciliation as to the revenues and expenses and the annual PSAB surplus and deficit in comparison to and reconciles that back to zero, as that's how you're supposed to budget for your tax rate budget. So as you can see there in the first column under budget, PSAB was showing that you were going to have a loss of 129,000, but then when you take account for the items that are adjustments for PSAB related things, you can see there that they do, that first column does come back to zero. Of course, majority of that is the treatment of tangible capital assets and the use of reserve and reserve funds and long-term debt as well. And then you can see there on the actual side for 2022, you did have a PSAB surplus, and a lot of that too. But then on the reconciliation part, you can see there that it does come back to zero as you did transfer any surplus amounts you had remaining over into reserves at the end of the year. And you can see there, the one spot you will just see this on this presentation is the purchase of tangible capital assets. You can see there this year was $5.2 million, about 900,000 below budget there. Both your accumulated surplus and your tangible capital assets. And one thing I'd like to point out here is that your goal here is to have your orange bar to be higher than your blue bar, which means you do have more equity than what you have tied up in your capital. So you can see there with got a little closer there because of course you added a large amount to your tangible capital assets this year. Next, we come to your revenue and expenses and annual surplus on a PSAB basis for the last 5 years. And that gray bar being your annual surplus or deficit. You can see there as you're designed, that doesn't vary that much, but it will depending on capital addition, so that don't be surprised. Some years the bar will be below the line being a deficit, and then above the line when you do have a lot of capital grants for tangible capital additions, so that and that's just the way PSAB works, because it you recognize the revenue when you get it, but you don't incur the expense until you depreciate that asset. So it could be 40 years later that it all comes back to being equal again, depending on how long you're depreciating the asset for. Next, we take a look at your revenues on a PSAB basis, and you can see there being over budget. And there were a few items to note there. Your user charges, just to point out. So that includes things such as your building permits, your arena fees, the water fees that you charge to your residents as well. So all of those items are within there. And as well too, both fire calls are in there as well. So that number was a fair bit higher than budget. So that's causing part of the variance from budget to actual. So, and as well too, building permits was another large component of that. Under government transfers within your provincial revenues, we're about $1.3 million. OMPF is about 530,000 of that and 625,000 for OCIF, and that was for both roads reconstruction and roads resurfacing. So that's the larger components there. And you did get an ISIP grant for funding for recreation and trails, and that's included in there as well. And I think the one thing there, the Canada Community Building Fund, so that was also utilized, as I said earlier, your gas tax for roads work as well. And then your other revenue this year, you can see there's a fair bit higher. Included within that is your interest and earned on your amounts. With the higher interest rates, you did better there as well too. You recognized some monies that you received from Township Hamilton related to the animal shelter and the wind up of that organization. So that those are some of the larger components within that line item. Then on the following slide, you will see the pie chart of that. Of course, you like most area municipalities, property taxation is your main source of funding. The following slide then just gives you an idea of your expenses on a PSAP basis, and you can see there your overall your expenses were higher than budget. There were a number of things within the protection services area related to fire, both and as well too within transportation related to the additional cost for fuel for vehicles. So that's had a major impact on a lot of municipalities. And as well too, when you look at protection services, it does include fire, policing, conservation authorities, building and protective inspection and control, environmental services, that relates entirely to the water system. Health services relates to the operations of the cemeteries. Recreation and culture, there was some variance there for both additional costs related for both parks and recreational facilities, with further opening of or the lessening of restrictions as well. There's more activity within at the arena, and as well too, planning and development was under budget, as most items were just lower than budget. And then the following slide, you can see there the transportation services is the largest component for the municipality. And then when you take a look at the following slide, it just provides the same numbers, just in a different breakdown. And you can see there too that when you look at contracted services, a little over $1 million of that is related to policing. And within external transfers, majority of that is related to monies you pay over to the Conservation Authority. And then as well too with amortization, there were a number of roads that were fully amortized. So therefore the amortization in the prior year, so therefore your amortization was down, but I suspect in next year it will start to increase with the amortization of the new Public Works edition. And then you can see there this segmented information provided in the pie chart. Next we come along to your accumulated surplus. So this gives you an idea as to of your accumulated surplus, the $24 million, what the major components are there. And you can see there that when you take your net book value of your tangible capital assets, take away the debt associated with them, you can see there that you're at about $18.6 million of that is entirely tied up in your tangible capital assets. So that leaves the balance to be being reserves as well, a small surplus for the library. So it's nice to see there. They moved from a small deficit in the prior year to a small surplus position again in 2022. And then as well too, you will see there the utilization of both the fire reserve. So that amount has went down for the acquisition of vehicle and equipment. And then your other major components within there are about $1.4 million for roads and about 412,000 related to recreation. So that's, when I said earlier, you had about $7 million in cash, the $5.5 million in reserve. So there's the components there, plus the $2.3 million in your obligatory reserve funds. So that's just explains as to where most of your cash resides and where it came from. And then as well, the following slide just gives you an idea of your reserves over the last 5 years. And then the following slide just gives you an idea as to your tangible capital assets, and with the public works addition, that's the increase there in buildings. Vehicles additions relate to fire. Majority of the machinery and equipment relates to fire for the self-contained breathing apparatus, and then as well parks and recreation. Roads and roads reconstruction are what was done for the roads and bridges, and then as well to land improvements relates to work done at the ballpark. And then you can see your additions and amortizations over the last 5 years, and the large increases in 18 and 2022 for the big projects. And then you can see here the average useful life, and as well with the addition of the both the fire hall and the addition to the public works, you have a fair bit of green within the building. So of course the newer costs will create more net book value. So that's why they're like that. And then you can see there your 5-year trend on your net financial assets, as I mentioned earlier, that you moved with the addition of the $3 million in your debt for public works addition, then it brought your net financial assets down by almost that amount. So, but you still remain in the black there. It's a summary where things ended up at the end of the years.
Thank you. Any questions for the previous stuff? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Through your Mayor Logo, I wanted to let you know, it wasn't to do with this, but I found it quite interesting, the uncorrectedness statements.
Yeah.
And thank you to Nicole. She was able to explain it because it didn't make sense to me, and I wanted to know where this money was hanging out. Anyway, all is well. And one of the things is when, if I may, Mayor Logo as well, when you are doing your audit, you have a level
Threshold.
and a threshold.
Yeah.
And if it's under the threshold, how would you explain that better than what I would?
All right. So when we set materiality, it gives us a guide, and it provides us an idea as to how much and the extent of testing that we have to do when we work through it on a statistical sample basis. And then as well too, it gives us a guide when we compare differences at the end, and that one being one of them. So and therefore, as I said, if it was larger than a certain amount, then we would ask you to make an adjustment. But it was below that, so we don't need an adjustment to be made. But it doesn't mean though that we don't look at anything below that value. Yes, so therefore, and really for us to put things on the schedule, it's normally about 5% of materiality that would go on there. So it's a pretty low threshold. So therefore, it's just a way for us then to tabulate those things that we're just not making a lot of small adjustments that aren't always needed. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, Richard. You
Uh,
got some more coming?
No, I just wanted to
I
thank.
thought I seen there now for the future or something. along like that. I thought you were gonna
No,
tell
no.
us what's coming.
No, we're just financial statement auditors. We like to work in the past. But no, I would just thank your staff for all the work they put into it and getting things to where they are now. So there's a lot of work to get to be prepared and get done for the financial statements. So wish to thank them for that, and then wish everyone good luck in this year and the years to come.
Well, I'd just like to go ahead, Mike, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I did have just so through Mayor Logo, where do we capture back taxes? In our finances report?
So that on these financial assets, there's a line called taxes receivable. So that includes all the taxes that everyone owes you. So I think if you go
It was
back.
about $1.2 million, wasn't it? or
Yeah,
something like
so
that?
on
Okay.
slide page 5 of the slides. It's the single line and as I mentioned earlier, that it's almost $1.3 million at the end of the year, and that's everybody's share. So if somebody doesn't pay you, you still pay the county and school their amounts. So it's about $1.3 million at the end of 2022.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and well, I never thought of that before, but of that $1.3 million, we're only going to get about 40% of it. Between the county and the
Yes.
education, they're getting 60%, but we're paying the interest on that 60%.
Yeah, you're forgoing that.
Yeah,
interest
forgoing,
because-
okay.
yes, Yeah.
Good point. Do you have another one, Mike?
Yeah, actually, Deputy Mayor Stover brought it up, but she got an answer for it. And it was one of my questions. Is what, if you could just explain that uncorrected misstatement.
So that in your case, that's all related to the interest that's accruing on your 2 debentures. So you pay them twice a year, depending on the date you took them out. So I think the last one, I believe, came out December the 15th. So there would have been 60 days of interest on the $3 million to take it to the end of the year. So that amount wasn't recorded. But under PSAP rules, you're supposed to record that. So and the same applies to the fire debenture. So that's all it is. So when you make your first payment in 2023 on the debentures, that number goes to 0. And then you make the payment again the following 6 months. So that number will be there. So unless you take on new debt, that number will be there every year, but it'll just keep going down. Yeah. Thank you.
I just want to make a quick comment, Richard. Thank you very much for all the work that you and your staff have done and worked well with Nicole and her team. I know you've had it's always a challenge.
Yes.
You know, when you hear the auditors are coming, we kind of, or I kind of duck anyways, but Nicole, she's got lots of experience and it doesn't bother her a bit. So, but I want to thank you very much for all your hard work in putting this together. And I'll read the resolution. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Allen Calderman approve the 2022 draft financial statement audited and presented by Baker Tilly, KDN LLP, to be finalized, and further that the council approve the proposed journal entries prepared by Baker Tilly, KDN LLP, to be posted by staff, and further that the council direct the mayor and the treasurer to sign the audit report letter enclosed in the 2022 draft financial statement package, and further that the treasurer's report dated October 3rd, 2023 regarding the 2022 financial statement be received and filed. Mover in a second. Moved by Councillor Booth, seconded by Councillor Ainsworth. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Oh, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
These include the audited statements for the library.
Correct. Yes.
So can council approve theirs, or do you present that then to the library and they approve it? How does that dynamic work since they're an independent board?
Well, technically, but from a PSAB perspective, they are viewed as a board of the township. So therefore, our view of that is then council does have the ultimate responsibility for the overall reporting package.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you, Richard.
All right,
Have
thank
a
you.
safe trip home.
Yes. Have a good meeting.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you. Item 10-2, 2024 budget schedule, whereas the council of the township of Allen Alderman received the 2024 budget schedule report. Be it resolved, the council approved the 2024 budget schedule. Mover and seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, second by Council Rainsworth. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. Do you have a question? I'm sorry.
Sort of regarding, through your worship, maybe to the treasurer, is because it's still on budget in the schedule. Can you tell us, and I don't know whether you know, or maybe the CAO knows, I think you did a presentation, Nicole, back in September about overages. And we were supposed to get a report back from, I believe it was fire and from roads. Are we getting that report? Do you know when we get that report about the overages?
This on? So I have not seen anything as of yet, and I might defer to CAO Dave Dawson. He might be able to give you some follow-up on that.
Yeah, sure, I can comment on that. Nicole and I are having a meeting coming up that we'll be discussing this process.
Okay, thank you.
Moving right along, the next we have a presentation from the Community Risk Assessment and Fire Master Plan. And the Lumix Group is going to do that, and I wonder, is Grace here? Okay, oh, there's Grace. Welcome, Grace. Grace McDonald. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Next group. And I really want to just give an overview today of the two processes that we have embarked upon, because we've already begun. So just a little bit about the Lumix is a large group of companies, and the company the part of the group that I'm with is the Government Services Group. So we are involved in municipalities doing community risk assessments and fire master plans. They work for different clients across Canada and the US. They have an aeronautics side, they have an explorer solutions side. So they do an awful lot of different work. But the goal is always to inspire positive work and change in communities, and to make communities, organizations stronger and safer. So here's our team. So our project advisor and the Vice President of Government Services is Carrie Gervais. And Bill Lorimer is the Lumix team lead, and he will be actually taking the lead on these projects here. And he has a great deal of experience. Bill is still active in the fire service and also has a great deal of business experience. And then the rest of the team, as you can see, many of them coming from the fire service, some of them being currently active, and some of them being retired members. I will be assisting Bill a little bit on this project, and I come from the private sector, having 24 years experience in fire safety and emergency planning. So the first document that I'd like to talk a little bit about today is the community risk assessment. So the community or the Ontario regulation for the community risk assessments came into effect July 1st, 2019. This is where the province declared that all municipalities and fire departments conduct and develop a CRA. The deadline for that is July 1st, 2024. So it is fast approaching. CRAs basically identify and look at community risks from a fire services perspective. So it's a little bit different than the HIRA that you may have all already worked on. That's sort of more from an emergency management perspective. So looking at a broader spectrum, whereas we're looking at the risks in your community from a fire services perspective. And it really is a tool, and it's going to help municipalities make decisions about fire protection, levels of service, what your risks are, and how to mitigate those risks in your communities. So there are 9 mandatory profiles that we look at within the community risk assessment. So we look at the geographic profile, and I already can tell you that you have a most interesting geographic profile here in Alnwick-Haldimand, just simply by the virtue of how the geographic area of your municipality and how it's laid out. We look at your building stock. So we look at residential building stock. We look at commercial building stock, industrial building stock, any vulnerable occupancies that exist in your community, and the risks that might be implied from that. One of the new things that has come out is the Fire Marshal's Office is now requiring municipalities to track lightweight construction. So this is fairly new, and it's certainly a challenge. We have not come across a municipality yet that is actively tracking lightweight construction. So it's something that will have to be in place going forward, that is now tracked. And community risk assessments are developed, and then it is required that they're redeveloped 5 years down the road. We certainly recommend that they're reviewed annually, and as things change, the document gets updated. But in 5 years, I think the requirement will still be there for lightweight construction, and hopefully municipalities will have been able to do some tracking. We look at all your demographics. So we look at your population. We look at the age of your population. We look at the education level of your population. We look at your cultural backgrounds. We look at any obvious hazards that exist within your community. We look at your public safety response entities. So who other than your fire department are you relying on to respond to events within your community? And I think probably an example would be CN Rail, CP Rail, Ministry of Transportation, where you're also relying on other organizations to respond. What are the community services within your community? So who within your community is able to respond and assist in the event of an emergency? They can be community groups. You may have service clubs, things like that. So we'll look a little bit at that. Economics, again, we'll look at the economic factors in your community, and that will be, who are the employers, where are people working, what's the income level of people within the community, what are the economic factors, the challenges within the community. So we try and look a little bit at all of that. And then the past events and lost history. So this is information that we gather through working directly with the fire department, with your fire chief and his staff. So we're looking at what's happened generally in the last 5 years, but sometimes there's a significant event that might be just outside that window. So we certainly will look at that too. So past loss in terms of fire loss, past history in terms of inspections, and any other risk. So if it's a weather-related risk and there was a major event, 6 years ago or 7 years ago, we're going to look at all of those things. So those are the 9 profiles that we'll be examining to put together the community risk assessment. So it's really about evaluating the threat, so the likelihood and the consequence. So we look at the likelihood of any given threat occurring in the community. And the way we do that is to look at that past events history and look at the likelihood of that event occurring again. The OFM states that the fire department should use a professional judgment along with historical information about past incidents and how likely it is for that event to occur or reoccur. So then the consequence is always the potential losses or negative effects that result in the community after emergency. So there is a formula that is used within the community risk assessment. So once we assess the likelihood, and again, looking at past events and other information, and then we look at the consequences, there's a formula in place that gives us a number that sort of lets us know whether the risk is a high risk, a moderate risk, or a low risk. So it's important to identify these risks and which ones are likely to occur and what the serious consequences are there, may be. After we identify the risk, then we can determine how to address them. So we start to look at risk treatment plans for the various risks that we've identified in the community. So if an emergency were to occur and the community hasn't established adequate response protocols, the consequences, could be more severe than if we've weighed that risk, decided, is this a risk that we need to accept? Can we mitigate this risk? If so, how do we mitigate this risk? Is it a risk we can share with other entities? So all of that is part of the community risk assessment. So our approach and methodology, so we have a team. So your team has been selected, and I'm very happy to be one of them. We start to review the data, and as the chief can attest to, we ask for a great deal of data for the community risk assessment. So we look at the legislation, we look at your establishing regulating bylaws, we look at fire prevention policies if they're in place, we look at documents, reports, we look at maps, and we conduct site visits. And part of that process, I think, has already begun. So we engage with the fire chief, the deputy chief, and any other municipal stakeholders. And then we analyze the information, consider what the best practices should be, develop that community risk assessment, and then develop the mitigation strategies for those identified risks. So just to give you some understanding of how we measure the risks. So the categories are rare, unlikely, possible, likely, and almost certain. So once we have an idea of the past history and what has occurred, then we can begin to rate the likelihood levels. So rare may occur in exceptional circumstances, no incidents in the last 15 years. Unlikely could occur at some time if circumstances significantly change, 5 to 15 years since the last incident. Possible would be might occur under current circumstances, 1 incident in the past 5 years. Likely will probably occur at some time under current circumstances, multiple or recurring incidents in the past 5 years. And almost certain, expected to occur in most situations unless circumstances change, multiple or reoccurring incidents in the past year. So the best example I could give you of this would maybe be residential fires. So residential fires almost always are in the almost certain or likely category, despite all the work that's being done to prevent them. And then we look at the consequence levels of those risks. So is it insignificant, no life safety, limited value or no property loss, no impact on the local economy, and no effect on general living conditions? Is it minor, potential risk to the life safety of residents, minor property loss, minimal disruption to business activity, minimal impact on general living conditions, or moderate, threat to life safety of residents, moderate property loss, poses a threat to small or local businesses, could pose a threat to the quality of the environment. major potential for massive loss of life, significant property damage, significant threat to large businesses, local economy and tourism, environmental impact causing short-term partial evacuation of residents and businesses, or significant loss of life, property damage to a sizable portion of the community, long-term disruption of businesses, local employment and tourism, or environmental damage resulting in long-term evacuation of residents and businesses. So those are the things that we will be measuring against once we have identified the risks. And this just shows you how it comes across. So when we're looking at those two categories, and again, there's also a number assigned once we run it through the matrix. But so if something is almost certain and it is going to be a major consequence, then it's going to score high. If it's almost certain, but it has an insignificant consequence, and again, probably motor vehicle collisions would be an example where something is almost certain to occur in the next year. Is the consequence to the community insignificant or minor? Yes, so it's going to score in that moderate risk. So then we start to develop the risk treatment plan. So for each risk that we have scored through the matrix, we will develop a risk treatment plan. And again, it's an evidence-based approach. Most of this document is statistical driven, so it's not really an opinion piece. We're really looking at the statistics, at the numbers, both in this community, and we're doing some comparisons with numbers across the province. So again, we're looking at the statistics. Then we will develop the risk treatment plans, and they'll consider the potential outcomes, what the proposed action should be to mitigate those risks. They may recommend training, service delivery agreements. We may be looking at different resource allocation or service level changes. And those recommendations will be in the risk treatment plan that comes to council. So the next document that we are working on is the fire master plan. So the risk treatment plan sort of lays the groundwork. So you've identified the risks in your community. We've looked at some strategies. You have some risk treatment plans in place. And then that informs the fire master plan. So the next piece is the fire master plan. So the purpose of the fire master plan is really to ensure that this municipality's fire department is compliant with the Fire Protection and Prevention Act and any other applicable legislation. It will provide recommendations about appropriate levels of service in public education, in code enforcement, which is fire prevention and suppression. It'll provide council with information to help make decisions that are going to protect the lives and property of the residents and ensure firefighter safety. It will provide council and the fire chief with budgeting and timeline recommendations. It'll provide a guide for aligning available resources as efficiently and cost effectively as possible. So the areas of focus for the fire master plan are governance, fire suppression and emergency response. So we look at the current level of service that you're delivering in these areas. We're looking at the training, fire prevention and public education, staffing levels, fire stations. So the actual functionality as well as location of the fire stations, fire apparatus and equipment. We're looking at your maintenance program, your dispatch and radio systems. We're looking at your budgets, your cooperation levels with other emergency services, fire protection agreements where you may have those in place with other fire departments, and population and employment growth. So projected growth. So the stakeholders are, of course, our council, municipal staff, the firefighters, department staff, the residents, businesses, and municipal partners. So we have already begun our SWOT analysis. And so we will meet with the firefighters and with the officers SWOT standing for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So we have already conducted our first SWOT meeting at Station 3. Am I correct? Thank you. Station 3, Station 2 came to Station 3, and we had both groups together. And then tomorrow evening, we will repeat the process here at Station 1. So we will have a session strictly for firefighters, and then a session for officers. And I believe that there's already surveys in the works that are being distributed, and trying to get feedback from the surveys as well. And that's the end of my presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you very much for your presentation.
You're very welcome.
Any questions from council? Go ahead.
Through
Deputy
your
Mayor.
local, and this is to CAO Dawson. I noticed the SWOT analysis will be tomorrow night. Is this anything just pertaining to the fire department? Would this be a good learning experience for council, or you don't want us there?
You might get the wrong answer asking it that way.
I just put it out there.
Oh, shit, microphone. Through your mayor, Councillor Stover, these first sessions with the firefighters are designed to not have council present. And in fact, the fire chief is not welcome. So they're designed to get honest and open feedback from the firefighters about how they're feeling, how they feel about the fire department and their service. And then the second session is scheduled with the officers so that the firefighters supervisors are not with them either. And then the supervisors get to speak openly without the firefighters present. Because the fire chief works hand in hand with Lumex and the team for gathering the information, that I get to voice my information as well. And my understanding is that through you, Grace, that council will be given the same opportunity. That was a question that Terry Gervais had with me in the very beginning. Some municipalities don't include council, while others do want that to happen. So I expressed that that was a necessity here.
You got it looked after then.
You will be
Thank you.
contacted.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Grace, thank you very much for your presentation. I just have one. I know you've started and we got to be done by the 1st of July. We're going to meet that by a long way.
Yes. Through
You're
you,
going to be
Mayor.
done by
Yes, I believe that the timeline is going to be met. I don't think there's any issue with the timeline here.
Yeah.
Information has already begun to flow to us, so that's very helpful.
And have you done an awful lot of these? Because there's 444 municipalities across Ontario. So I'm assuming this is a big thing for your company.
We have happily been very busy in the last year, and I expect that I'm very glad that you're getting yours done this year. But I know that there will be some municipalities waiting to the last minute, and I think it's going to be a little bit of a crunch trying to get to everyone who hasn't completed theirs.
Well, I know our chief, he likes to get moving on stuff quick, so give him a chance and he's out there biting.
That's a compliment.
Yeah, I know. Be it resolved, the council of the township of Allen-McCullum receive and file the community risk asset assessment and master fire plan presentation from Lumix Group, Grace McDonough, for information. Moved by Mary Catherine, seconded by Councillor Ainsworth. Further discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you so much for your presentation. Next, we have 12.1, the building permit summary. Be it resolved, the council of the township of Allen-McCullum received for information the building permit summary report dated October 3rd, 2023 from Chief Building Official Nick Hornwick. Is Nick here? Yes, he is. Can I get Nick, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah,
video's not working.
I'm not sure if anybody's gonna have any questions for you or not, but I'm gonna read the resolution, and then if we have questions, we can ask you. Be resolved, the council of the township of Almaco will receive for information the building permit summary report dated October 3rd, 2023 from Chief Building Official Nick Hornwig. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover and seconded by Councilor O'Neill. We got any questions for Nick? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Through your man local, and this is to Nick. Nick, I'm wondering if you perceive to have any changes in your report then, because I realize this is something that you've continued on, and I'm just wondering if you would have any changes you would like to see in the reports that come to us.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything that I would necessarily add unless there's more information that you would like to see as council.
Thank you.
Any other further questions for Nick? All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Next, we have the asset management report. And is Brian, are you doing this or is Susan with us today? Hello, Susan. How are you?
Good. Yeah.
Do you want to, oh, you're both there. Do you want to lead us through your report?
I think it's just a summary basically of where asset management is right now and where it's going. So right now, basically, I am reviewing the assets that we have. The actual report of the asset management plan was done in 2021. So some of the information that we have goes back to 2019. So some of it's there between 2019 and 2022. So basically now I am going through the assets, trying to update them to the current time for the last couple of years and any of the information that needs to be added. I'm going to have to meet with senior managers to go through to make sure once I've got things in the
Susan,
system.
can you excuse me for a sec, can you either try speaking a little bit closer or further away from the speaker, because we're having difficulty understanding.
Can't hear me?
Well, we can hear you, but it's just muffly.
Okay, let me see if there's a. I'll try a headset and see if you can hear me better.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me a bit better now?
I think so.
You think so? Okay. I'm not sure if this headset is working properly.
Yeah, it's much better.
It's much better. Perfect. Okay, so basically now I'm going through and updating the assets to the present time to the end of this year. I'm going to meet with the senior management team to make sure that what we've got in there with all the senior managers is correct. And then once we're done with that process, we'll be starting to look at, we have to have our levels of service in for July 1st of 2024. So basically that process is looking through some of our master plans. As you heard, they were talking about the fire master plan and having the levels of service in there. I do believe that most of our master plans do not, like looking at Parks and Rec, there isn't levels of service in there. So they'll be going through that, working with council and working with staff to get appropriate levels of service. I'm doing training at the present time as well to go through with smaller municipalities and getting the level of service done for them and just working with other ones in the area. So we're all kind of in the same boat at this present time. And then once that is complete, at the end of the year, I'm hoping maybe to do another presentation, looking at the assets that we have and doing a presentation showing, you know, for budgets and analysis and that, how it can be helpful for everyone at that point.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
If anybody has any questions with regards to it.
Yeah, I've got one, Susan, DOT. That's a short term for what?
Or that's the software that we have, which is decision optimization technology.
Okay, okay. And I guess my other question, about how much time will the managers need to spend with you on something like this? Do you have a feel for that compared to what you were doing in 2022?
I think at this point, so we just started doing this year. So it's a new position, as you know. So so nothing's been looked at since you have gotten the software back in 2022. So it's going to be a little bit of time with each of the managers just to make sure that what we have in the system is representative of what they have. Assets that they've gotten rid of, new assets that they've gotten, just making sure that it's all correct. So at this point, I can't tell you for sure how long it's going to take, but it's going to be a bit of a process. Just getting everything updated is a bit of a process.
Okay, and I know you mentioned it, but at least I think you mentioned that you're going to give us an update by the end of the year or something along that line?
Yeah, end of the year, probably into January. Once we've got all the assets up to date, then we can give you a better overview of everything at that time.
Perfect. Anybody else have any? Mary Catherine, go ahead.
This is more so a comment than any question, but thank you very much for an update and letting us know where we are in the process, and that I'm very excited to see that staff and council will be working together to set the current levels of service. And I think that's a very positive step.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you for your report, Susan. I'll read the resolution. Be it resolved, the Council of the Township of Allen-McCullough receive and file the asset management update report from the Public Works Department for information. Mover and seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councilor Ainsworth. All in favor? Motion's carried. Go for another 10 minutes, and then we'll take a break. Thank you. October, request for parking restrictions, south end of Ontario Street. Brian, are you going to take us through this real quickly?
Several Mayor Logo, members of council. There was a letter that come to council a couple of council meetings ago from the Cochrans. And again, I did meet Mr. Cochran down there in Lakeport. But again, there is I would like to do a little bit more further investigation in this. Meet with the Cochrans again, both from Brendan Moore, and then bring a recommendation back to council. Mr. Cochran was very good to meet with. We walked the road allowance down to Lake Ontario. We had a good 15-minute to 20-minute chat. Flowing down now, their main concerns are mainly during the summer, so I didn't want to rush a report to council on this before I really laid out different options and run it by them as well, because again, their yard and the backyard is right there, so I want to make sure that the road allowance for the users using it isn't interrupted too much as well, being cognizant of the Cochrans live next door as well. So I just like a little bit further time to do this and bring something back to council.
Okay. Have you got a date you're thinking about by the end of the year?
It'd be in this year, so probably that could be November. It could be the November meeting, latest the December meeting, the first meeting in December.
Okay, I think that's suitable. I'll read the resolution. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Allen-McCullough receive the Lakeport, Ontario Street Report to the Manager of Public Works / Parks and Recreation for information, and further be it resolved that Council approve the staff request to consider the manager's recommendation regarding this matter to a future meeting by the end of December. Council, okay with that?
Yep.
Got to move in a second. Moved by Councilor Ainsworth, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. Further discussion? All in favor?
Done.
Motion's carried, motion's carried, but go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I just, I wonder what, when Brian's putting this report together, if, I don't know if he has anything he can share with us today, because I mean, it's, with the little park there and the way Ontario comes around the front street there. You know, it's, you know, it's a good used area down through there, that's all. And I just wouldn't want to create more issues than we're trying to solve.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I guess I should have maybe commented a bit more, councilors there in Mayor Logo. I did answer some of the questions that come from council, I think, from Mary Catherine there. You know, on the monument, the kayaking, kayakers using the road, gate, dusk till dawn as possible, parking, if access road is closed, it would be an issue. So I think that, Councilor Ainsworth is talking about that. It is a, you know, a well-used area. And again, where it is on the curve on the 90-degree bend there and stuff, if we did, you know, restrict parking on the road allowance, it would cause an issue out on the streets and stuff like that. So there's a few moving parts in this report coming back. So that's why I just want a little bit more time. But I think the busy time of the year is coming up, like probably after Thanksgiving and, you know, late October. The usage will slow down there. So it was my plan to bring a report back here by, you know, by December, early December, that this will be in place, or for council to entertain my recommendation so that in 2024, these issues that the Cochrans have, as well as taking consideration of the people that use this, aren't impacted too much as well.
Thank you, Brian. Yes, go ahead.
Through your Mayor Logo, Brian, just a question. If, can you tell the council what the financial impact would be if we had to install a dusk till dawn gate? Because it would have, right, open and closed every single day. We'd have to send staff down to do that.
Yeah, and that probably wasn't, through you, Mayor Logo, that probably wasn't gonna be in my recommendation to have that, but I would probably have I don't know the cost now, Dave, but I would have that in my future report. But there definitely would be a cost impacted by that, for sure.
No, that's great, Brian. That's what I wanted you to mention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, you got another comment?
Yeah. So when this came to council, it was about the headlights from the cars coming down and turning to the left and shining through their house. So is there more to it now? Because if we're talking about putting gates up for the parking lot?
Well, Brian, you've discussed this with them, so why don't we let Brian get his report done first, and then we'll see.
Yeah.
See what he
And if
comes
I could
back.
just add to it too, Mayor, have we thought about making from Front Street, and this is for Brian, I guess, just something to think about, from making it from Front Street to the laneway into the little park one way? And that
I'm
would
sure
solve all
he'll
the-
be looking at
you
all
know,
of those different type things.
it would solve all the lights flashing into their house.
I'm sure he's looking at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna move on. All in favor? Carried. Next, we have the Public Works Department update. Be resolved the council. Oh, Brian, go ahead.
Yes, through your Mayor Logo and members of council, this is my departmental update for the past since last meeting, as well as in future. I've highlighted some of the major items that's happened in the department, as well as moving forward. One thing I will comment on is we're currently, our last construction capital project is the Bevan Ridge, where staff is currently up there right now, doing the ditching and grading to have that last road done as our capital roads project. So I would comment on that. And I can answer any questions the council has of any other things in my report.
Okay, I'll read the resolution. Be it resolved, the council of the township of Alma Cullen received for information the Public Works Department update report dated October 3rd, 2023 from the manager of Public Works, Parks and Recreation, Brian McMillan. And I guess I'll take the first opportunity, Brian. I know you've been working real hard with the contractors and getting a lot of the trees taken out. The dead trees, I expect those are most emerald ash. Are we going to be faced with the same issues and costs next year? Or do you think we're making some headway? Go ahead, Brian.
Yep, sorry, through you, Mayor Logal. Yes, we have our budget actually, I think right off the top, it was around $110,000, $120,000 in our 2023 operational costs. And I think we're getting close to having that used up here. We'll probably get used up by the end of October. Do I see the same amount? I think we'll see a decrease a little bit. We did quite a bit this year. I can't see an increase, but again, I'm starting to work on the budget here now. But there still is more. We kind of went from a liability perspective and kind of went to the high risk, high danger ones that we had calls from, or ones that were, you know, really close to the road. There was a danger of, you know, coming across the road or falling onto the road. So we've got a lot of those down, but there still is more. And your comment about the emerald ash, that is probably 80% to 85% to be the trees that we put down with from the emerald ash that, you know, hold the trees. So,
You know, I've seen a big effort from your team to do a lot of that type stuff, and I'm not getting the complaints that I'm not hearing the ones that I was getting 6 or 8 months ago. So kudos to you and your team.
thank you.
Any other
Thank you.
questions or comments? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mayor Logal, to Brian. Are you caught up on your ditching, the different properties that you were going to be ditching?
Go ahead, Brian.
Yes, yep, through you, Mayor Logo. Yes, Deputy Mayor. Again, I just mentioned that we're up on Bevan Ridge, finished our last capital project. I've got a crew up there, but I also have another crew currently in the north, and they're working on what you're talking about, some other ditching maintenance that have been called in before. So we're currently working on them, and we plan on working on those projects now till you know, the snow flies and stays kind of thing. So the next couple months, the majority of our little ditching will get done that we had on our list, but then that list is going to continue on for years and years. But we're going to get the ones that are causing us problems right now, or people have called in first, Deputy Mayor.
Would you be able to put a list? Do you have a list that you could publish so people would know that you are going to be doing that this year?
I can put my next report here coming up. I can put down the roads we did and the ones we're going to do in the future. Yes, I could for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Go ahead, Greg.
Through you, your worship, to Brian. Brian, just 2 quick questions. You talk about the speed data equipment and you're awaiting training. So do you have a date yet of when they're going to come and train the staff?
I don't have a date. I know I seen an email earlier from Susan sending off to help me to Port Perry. I can think of the name right now, but we have had a couple training sessions booked. We had to cancel from our end once, they had to cancel. I would think it'd be the next 2 weeks. You know, Greg, maybe as early as the end of next week, I would say. And that's for the Black Cat equipment. That's the new one that were purchased this year, as well as the older one we had with the software upgrade. It's, you know, I think it's an hour training. I mean, for the Black Cat before in 2 weeks here with the Black Cat the municipality had, the OPP used them up. So again, we do this training, and again, hopefully we can get a book by next week and we can get using it.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is, I know coming into the meeting, I saw your staff at Bevan Ridge Road. So has the rest of that road been completed by the contractor that was given permission to do that? I'm going to say past council, probably 4 years ago, 3 years ago. Did he finish that?
Through you, Mayor Logo, no, Councillor Booth, that's not complete yet. We're working on our part from the current all year round road allowance. We're doing that work, and I'm still on the contractor and the owner to get that completed. Hopefully by the end of the year. It's not complete, no.
So that could possibly be an issue with us then, Brian, because I know you were holding off doing that road because he's gonna move heavy construction stuff on there to finish his, so they're gonna drive over our road now that's all finished and possibly damage what your crew's doing now.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yep, through your Mayor Logo. I was kind of concerned with this earlier on, Councillor Booth. Where we're stopping the construction up top, there's room for them when the contractors are gonna drive from Scott's line up straight, and they won't be turning or moving around on the new road, so they'll be turning equipment around beyond our construction point, so I have no concerns with the new road being wrecked.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, did you have a comment?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Logan. I just wondered if we'd taken over the Glens of Athens subdivisions yet, that road, or the street going through there.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yes, through your Mayor Logo. Yes, Councilor Ainsworth, our consultants that are doing the peer review of the work done by the developer and the report from their consultant is currently being reviewed. I don't have a time frame. I would think it would be before December 1st. I couldn't throw that date out, but our peer review consultant is working with their consultant to make sure that whatever was in the original subject agreement, there is an agreement with the developer and the municipality that all this stuff is met. Because once we do assume, similar to we did up in the north or not too long ago with the other subdivision, the township takes over responsibility for anything that wasn't completed correctly. So we're trying to tie up the loose ends right now to get that done. So hopefully sooner than later, I can follow up though and get something back to you, maybe just a quick email, let you know when that's going to happen, but is in the process, Councilor Ainsworth.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Motion's carried. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I better read the resolution then. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Alma-Cullivan receive for information the Public Works Department update report dated October 3rd, 2023 for the Manager of Public Works, Parks and Recreation, Brian McMillan. Mover and seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, second by Councilor Ainsworth. Further discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. And if council allow me, I'd like to do one more, and that's the Parks and Recreation, and then Brian and his team will be probably done. If we can do that one. And Jennifer's, I'm sure, is there too. Good afternoon, Jennifer. You want to take us through your report?
Sure. Good afternoon, Mayor Logo. Through you, I'll just highlight a couple things in my report, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. So you'll see that there's an update on the Rink Seal Pro being installed at the arena, and that has been successful. So it has filled in the leaks or any leak that we did have in the system, and the ice operations and rentals can proceed as usual for the 2023-2024 season, and those rentals begin on October 10th. Currently, I have approximately 32 hours of prime time hours booked, and I'm just finalizing that schedule this week, and then we'll fill in with programming hours as well, like public skating. Also, there's two surveys out now. One is our township survey on Let's Talk Alma-Cullivan, just looking for some feedback on our summer events and programming. So that's still available, and I just encourage you to mention it and get the word out there. The other one is the Northumberland Communications Survey, and that is online until October 10th. So again, it'd be great just to get that information, get that out there to the communities, and know they can take the survey and hopefully get a good response there. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'll read the resolution first. Be it resolved that the council receive the Parks, Recreation and Cultural Update Report from Parks, Recreation and Cultural Coordinator Jennifer Steen dated October 3rd, 2023. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councilor Booth, second by Councilor Ainsworth. Any discussion? Councilor Booth.
Through your worship to Jennifer. Jennifer, you said you have 32 hours of prime time booked. That's out of how many hours? How many hours is prime time at the arena? A week,
So
it's a week, right?
It's a week, and the weekends are considered prime time. So it's after 4 p.m. during the weekdays and all day Saturday, all day Sunday. So I don't have it in front of me, but
Is it 4 to 11 or 4 to 12 on a week?
4 till 11.
So 7 hours. So that's 5 times 7. And what do you count as prime time on a Saturday and a Sunday? All day?
All day. So it would be from, 8 a.m. till 11 p.m.
Wow. 15:30. So
So the-
that's not a very impressive number then.
The
really, when you look
majority,
at
yeah, the major, if we took out the Saturday and Sunday, it would be. The majority of the primetime hours that are booked are weeknights, and that's what most leagues and other users are looking for. So I can say from Monday through Friday, we are booked from 5 p.m. till 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. Almost every night. Our Saturdays, typically in the past, we've always left Saturdays open for tournaments, and we currently have, I think 6 tournaments booked for the 2023-2024 season. This year we do I have put rentals in there as well. So we do have from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. booked every Saturday, as well as 6 hours currently booked every Sunday.
So is that
So
part
I'm,
of, is that part of your 35 hours?
yes.
Okay.
So a question for you, the rentals that are renting Saturday then from, I think you said 10 to 1 or 11 till 1, are they, is it in their contract that they're canceled if there's a tournament on a Saturday, or is that a
Yeah,
league or something?
Through you, Mayor Logo. So these are extra ice times that user groups are picking up, and they have been told that those Saturdays we do have tournaments, and I'll either bump them up if we can. Some of our tournaments are only 4 to 6 hours, and one tournament is agreed to go later in the day, so they'll start after 1 p.m. Otherwise, I'll bump the regular rentals up to earlier in the day.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Through you, Mayor Logal. Jennifer, what plan do you have to market this and get the numbers up for the skating?
Through you, Mayor Logo, for the public skating or drop-in programs, or for available rentals?
Yeah, available rentals. It would be any gambit, I guess, because we really have to get those numbers up.
Through you, Mayor Logal. I think once we have the schedule finalized, so I'm still talking with a number of groups trying to fit them in. Like I said, most of our requests come for weeknight hours, and we are booked from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Friday. So really our only available hours are Saturdays and Sundays. And I try to let everybody know that calls. Unfortunately, a lot of groups are looking for those weeknight hours. So once the schedule is finalized, it can be posted out there, and that through on our website as well as social media. And that way anybody can easily look at and see if there's hours that they're interested in. Also any like birthday parties or things like that, they come in on a Saturday and Sunday as well.
Go ahead.
Through your Mayor Logo, just a couple of things. One more question with this. I know some young kids are getting out of bed at 5 o'clock to skate. What is the earliest time that you would rent the ice for in the day? Would you look at a 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock a.m. skate?
Through you, Mayor Logo. So I would have to see, I guess, if we got a request. I haven't received a request for that early since I've been here. Typically our staff start work at 7 a.m. So we have had rentals at 7 a.m. before, but nothing earlier than that. But we would certainly see if we could accommodate those requests if they came in.
And just one more, Mayor Logo, Jen, what are all the plans in place for the Finella concert? I'm just not sure what is expected of the municipality.
Through you, Mayor Logal. Yes, I've been in constant contact with representatives from the Ontario Festival of Small Halls. And Councillor O'Neill has agreed to be a kind of a township ambassador at that event as well. And then our staff will make sure that the tables and chairs are and they have everything we need, but I've been in contact with them, and it's really just they need access to the venue and everything else that we'll have there ready for them. And they
And the
take care of
tickets.
everything else.
Are the tickets going well?
Yeah, they handle the tickets, the Ontario Festival of Small Halls. So I'm not sure exactly. I know there's still tickets available. It's not sold out yet.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Booth.
I guess one more quick question for you. Maybe you can explain. It's on your report where it says that there's a resolution from the committee from the July 24th meeting regarding recommending that an ad hoc working group be established to discuss the Roseneath Fairgrounds agreement. Is that coming to
Yes.
council then for us to discuss, or are we're
Why-
just receiving this for information, right? That doesn't mean that we've agreed to anything like that, is it? I don't know.
Well, I think if we're approving the minutes, and that's a part of the agreement, or pardon me, part of the minutes that they've made that motion, then we're agreeing that we're going to do that.
Okay,
And
so,
I guess I'm not comfortable with doing that.
well, either am I, because I'm going to mention further along in our agenda, under 15.2, we have an update from the CAO regarding putting a moratorium on all committee meetings and subcommittees and stuff like that. And if we're talking about ending all of that from Dave Dawson here, we're looking at here saying that we want to form a committee. And I don't think in all of my time, we've ever had an ad hoc committee working with staff on an agreement with a private rental group or that, which is, go ahead.
Sorry, Greg, through your Mayor Logo. That item was removed from the agenda.
The snack bar was not this.
That was the canteen.
No, it's in this one here.
Yeah, no, the canteen report was, and if I may, through you, Mayor, so this resolution that that was with Jen Steen's report is to receive this report for information. There was that recommendation in there from the committee, and with this resolution, that is not approving the recommendation from the committee. It is simply receiving for information.
Okay.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. So either a member of that committee can bring it up and we can discuss it then.
John,
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
through you, Mayor. So are we going to talk about the canteen?
No, it's been removed.
It's been removed, the canteen.
We're gonna finish this one first.
Yeah.
Okay, so can I get a move in second for this? Yeah. Can it sneeze?
Yeah,
I
moved it.
John,
Okay.
just
Go
one
ahead,
more
Mike.
on the, it's not on the report, but I wondered, like, in our budget, we're supposed to be looking at bleachers getting replaced and lawnmowers getting replaced. Is there anything coming down the chute sometime in that? Is it gonna be this year, next year that's gonna happen?
My understanding is, at least for the mower, that RFP was received. The for a lawnmower,
The tractor,
tractor, pardon me.
but
Yeah.
sorry, you were mentioning bleachers,
Yeah.
Councillor Ainsworth?
Yeah, he mentioned both.
Both, of them, yeah.
The tractor, my understanding is we received
The tender closed for the
Tender.
tractor.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. And the bleachers will come later on, like,
my understand, is Brian still there? Brian, go ahead. My guess.
I'll speak to, again, clerk there mentioned that, or Mayor did as well, that the tender for the tractor did close on Friday for the tractor for the ball fields. The bleacher is gonna be something come back to council near meeting to put that money reserve and to get the bleachers next year in 2024. With more detail of why we're doing that, it'll be in that report, but the bleachers were gonna be not purchased this year. I can describe that in the next report to you.
Thank you, Brian. Have we got to move in a second for this then? No, we'll finish it. Just move in a second.
14-1 we've completed.
14-1, we've completed, okay. Okay, I would take a motion that we recess for 10 minutes.
We had a mover and a seconder, but we didn't vote on it yet,
I don't
because
think we
I
did
spoke
vote.
first on it and
Yeah,
then
I
it got
don't
off
think we
track.
did. All in favor?
Right.
Carry. I would take a motion that we can recess for 10 minutes. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councillor Booth. All in favor? And then we'll be back at 3:27. Give me an extra 3 minutes. Okay, council has returned from break. I need a mover and a seconder to go back to work. Moved by Councillor Ainsworth, seconded by Councillor Booth. All in favor? Motion's carried. And the next one we have is, actually, we're not going to have it apparently, but there was 14-2. The Arena Canteen update report from Parks, Recreation and Culture Coordinator. And I believe Nancy, you had a quick comment on that?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Logal. This report came forward and it was published initially on the agenda, as you probably are aware of. It does speak to some operational matters that can probably be implemented strictly through the day-to-day operations without affecting the budget. So the decision was made to pull it.
Okay. Yeah, it'll come up again. Is it coming up again or no?
Oh,
Okay.
well,
Go ahead, Greg.
then I guess I have a question. Is staff going through and they're going to implement this without it coming to council, or? Because that sounds like if you're pulling it, it means that you're going to make it an operational thing, and I'd like to discuss it if we're talking about the snack bar, because this was a hot issue with the last council where we subsidized the canteen for $6,500 a year almost.
I would like the opportunity to discuss it with staff. I have a conversation and a meeting set up with Jennifer Steen tomorrow. And we'll be discussing that and we can come back to council with some information. The plan that I'd put forward was to have non-perishable foods available. The request was to operate at a zero budget impact. So I just want to have that conversation and then we can come back to how that's going to work.
Okay, so does that mean you'll come back to us before implementing it, or if discussions with her, you'll implement it and then come back and tell us that it's started?
No problem to come back with council if you'd like.
Before you implement it,
Yes.
yeah, because the report, just to make a quick comment, is a little deceiving because it says there's no financial impact and there's not. The staff there is going to look after it, but that staff that is there to move nets, clean dressing rooms, go outside and shovel snow will not be doing that if they're sitting there selling a chocolate bar or a cup of coffee. So just my point.
I'm just going to respectfully acknowledge what our clerk said to us. I believe this is a management issue, and it makes sense that when management decisions are being made, they're made by management.
Okay. We'll move on. Thank you. Item 15-1. For those of you who may have reviewed the council agenda package when it was published last week, the 2023 draft meeting calendar attachment was since replaced due to a typo. The new attachment shows the months of October, November, and December, and the recommendations for meeting dates for the remainder of the year, this year. So I'll read the resolution. Whereas council reviewed the information containing in the council meeting schedule recommendations report dated October 3rd, 2023. Be resolved that the council approved the recommendations contained within the report regarding changes to the council meeting schedule for October, November, and December of 2023. And further be it resolved that the council approved the recommendations contained within the report regarding changes to the council meeting schedule for January to December 2024. Who's going to lead us through this? Nancy?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Logal. I think the report is fairly self-explanatory, but I certainly welcome any questions that council may have.
Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Ms. Catherine.
Mine is in fact just a comment, so I am very supportive of this in the sense that its goal is to improve staff productivity. And I just want to acknowledge to our fellow councillors that when we first came on, we wanted to make sure we were including the public, and that was part of the changes that we made. But I actually think there's better ways to include the public. And I think of the public meeting we had about the new Danforth and how those comments came forward. That was a very, I felt, a very constructive way to be getting public comment coming forward. So there's different ways in our regular meetings to get the public involved, and we might want to be considering some new things that I see in other municipalities where there's, you know, coffee with the mayor time, those types of things where we get a chance and you know, or Councillor O'Neill time where, you know, we make ourselves available at a certain time and place to the public.
Cool. Any other questions or comments? Mike?
So does this mean when we have like a regular meeting, it's gonna be like 400 pages?
For you, Mayor, Councillor Ainsworth, it really just depends month to month on what items are coming forward. A lot of it is also dependent on the requests that we get from members of council as to what reports they want to have back. So the length of an agenda is very much a moving target.
Okay, thanks.
What, go ahead, Greg.
Through you, your worship, but I guess that would be my concern is there's sometimes we're having 2 meetings a month now, and there's sometimes we're having 4 or 5 hour meetings. And if we go to one meeting, my concern would be that we're going to be here for 6 or 7 hours. And just speaking for myself, after 3-4 hours, your brain with a lot of this stuff, you know, is mush, and you might not be making the right decisions. I have no issue with it. I think to try it, but I'd really like to see, you know, we come back maybe at the end of the year. If we find that we're having 7-8 hour meetings, then, you know, I think we're better to split it in 2 then. That's just my comment.
I'll make a quick comment. October and November, we would normally have 3 meetings. December, we would have 2. January, we would have 2. That's all in our schedule historically in December and January. Oh, sorry about that. So by doing that, you're really going to reduce the meetings for the rest of the year by a total of 2 meetings. And I believe, personally, all departments, and particularly the clerk's department, is still trying to catch up from stuff from last time. So I don't have a problem with, in fact, I think it's a good idea. And I know January, we only have 2 meetings in January, but then we move into the 3rd one in February. But my suggestion would be to try it. And the other part of it is, I know budgets are coming up in January, February, which does eat up an awful lot of time. So my thought would be to, as maybe Greg is suggesting, give it a try for those 5 months, and then we play it from here after that.
If I may, Mayor Logo, through you, I don't want council to have the impression that it's going down to 1 basic business meeting a month. So with the planning meeting, that's traditionally known as the planning meeting at the end of the month. In the past, I know that there's been a concern to keep that strictly planning matters, but what we would do with this proposed schedule, the recommendation is to have council business after the planning items at that meeting. So there would be half, or depending on what the agenda was, of other township business on the quote unquote planning agenda.
I'd like to make a comment on that. That's what we used to do up until, I don't know when it changed, but we did have 3 meetings, but some of them only lasted an hour and a half. But we did in fact have 2 meetings to regular, and the third one was a planning / regular council. Meeting. So. Go ahead.
And maybe just a recommendation. I know I've mentioned this to you before, Mr. CAO, that if we're going down to 1 meeting, is it at all possible that we make sure that that 1 meeting, which is going to be the second Tuesday of the month, right? That staff be here present. And another example was today with some of the staff talking, they're garbled, it's mumbled, they're just up the street. I think if we plan it out, I'm sure we can, that staff can come here, they can make their presentation, we can ask them anything, and then they're free to go instead of, I can understand if you're at home or something like that, or you're on a conference and you do it, but for you just to be up the street, I think it's only going to take a few minutes for them to come here, but that's just my recommendation if we're streamlining things.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Lobo. I agree with this. At first, I thought it was a bit of a head scratcher, but I thank you, Nancy and Dave, for bringing this forward, because I think we have to look at different ways to do business. And if we can be more efficient, I think we need to put these practices into place. So I thank you, and I'm in agreement with this.
Mike?
Through Mayor Lobo. So just, would it change the time that we would get our agendas to read?
Through you, Mayor. If that is something that council would like to discuss and direct staff, I'm assuming by your question that you might want it a little earlier if you think the agendas are going to be heavier.
Yeah, thanks.
That is something that could definitely be accommodated.
Okay.
If council wishes to do that. For now, it would still be just per the procedural bylaw that it would be published on the Wednesday for the following Tuesday.
Okay. But we could change that.
Yes.
There was, I'm not sure if it was in this report or something else, but wasn't there a 9:30 timetable start? It's in this report. So that would change the Tuesday meetings till 9:30 a.m. and the planning meeting till 9:30 a.m.
Through you, Mayor, that's correct. But anytime there is a need, when staff understands that there might be a particular interest or an evening meeting would be beneficial, we can always accommodate that.
And just to note, because I thought it was as simple as just going in and canceling the second meeting. It's not. You actually have to be careful that you have to go into November, and the date is now not the 7th, it's the 14th. So it's the second Tuesday of the month, not the first Tuesday of the month. Or you'll have people showing up here on the wrong date next month.
We will definitely post the schedule on the website, and councillors will definitely have that update. Thank you. No, we can.
So I read the resolution and we need mover and seconder. Councilor Booth. Seconded by Councilor Ainsworth. Further discussion? Deputy Mayor, you have any discussion?
Oh, no, I'm fine.
Okay, all in favor?
I was ahead of myself. All in
Motion
favor.
carried. Oh, and one thing, the other thing, we didn't talk about Rose Neat, so I guess we're not planning on going to Rose Neat.
That would.
Which I guess all three of them saying, I mean, they are virtual, so hopefully everybody can get them virtually. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you have to look at the procedural bylaw. I believe it's in the bylaw that we actually have a meeting at Roseneath every once in a while, so that would have to change.
Bylaw have to change, so it's gonna have to change for a lot of things, because we do say what time the meetings start and everything, so it's a lot of changes.
And through you, just on that one point, in terms of having meetings up at Roseneath, if there's going to be a large number of people that we expect from the public who might want to attend a meeting, it's difficult from a couple of different perspectives to have it up there. I'm quite happy to spread meetings around the township. I think that's a really good idea, but technology is very limited up there as well as space. So.
Mary Catherine?
I just want to reiterate that I fully agree, and we need to have meetings in different parts of the municipality. They just don't necessarily need to be our regular council meetings. But that does need to be something, it's part of communication, it's part of responding to ours. So I'm sure that's going to come back in our strategic plan.
We got the vote. All in favor?
Did we even get a move for second?
Yes, we
Yeah.
did get a mover.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All in favor?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Okay, we have the committee governance structure. Maybe I should read this first. You want to mention anything? I think I'll read it first. Whereas the acting CAO and clerk will bring forward a comprehensive report with recommendations to the November 28, 2023 council meeting regarding the Township of Allenwood Alderman's committee structure and governance, and whereas the strategic plan is coming forward for council's consideration in the fourth quarter of 2023, and whereas an effective, beneficial, and workable committee structure must closely align with the corporation's strategic plan and be considered during the budget process, and whereas all committees should have updated terms of reference that have been approved by council, and whereas terms of reference have not been drafted or approved by council for the recently reinstated Nawatin Nature Sanctuary Committee nor the Rose Neath Revitalization Committee, and whereas all existing, new, and reinstated committees and subcommittees should have approved terms of reference prior to public appointment of members. Therefore, be resolved, the council place a moratorium on the recent reinstated Nawatin Nature Sanctuary Committee and the Rose Neath Revitalization Committee until such time as council has reviewed the committee structure and governance report expected at the November 28th, 2023 council meeting, and further be resolved that council direct staff to contact the individuals who were successful applicants for membership of the Nawatin Nature Sanctuary Committee and advise them of this resolution, and further be it resolved that council direct staff to advise members of the public who contacted the township that council will consider a comprehensive report end of November 2023 regarding the committee governance structure, and until such time there will be a moratorium in place pausing the creation of or reinstatement of new committees or subcommittees, and further be resolved the council will refrain from creating new committees or subcommittees and will refrain from reinstating former committees until such time as council has considered the comprehensive staff report for and its recommendations. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councilor O'Neill. Any discussions? Deputy Mayor.
Through your Mayor Local to CAO Dawson and Clerk Nancy. I'm going to read what I have written here. You both are to be commended for your insight in initiating a comprehensive report on our committees and board structure. This is something that we have been asking for, and I'd like to congratulate you on knowing and realizing the need that to make sure that we are providing a duty of care for our volunteers, and that they receive, I'm sure your report will have in there the orientation, the policies that need to be in place, and the appropriate training. And I look forward to reading your report. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Go ahead, Councilor Booth.
Through you.
I
Oh, you go ahead.
believe I'm
You go.
seconded. It's my duty to be.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. you did.
No worries. I concur with what you've said, Deputy Mayor Stover. I'm especially pleased to see the language provided in the background. I think that is language that people needed to see and hear in our community, and it reflects what we would like to achieve as a council. So very, very pleased to see that. And I just want to add that because we had referred back about the revitalization committee to the recreation, that now is going to be a focus for discussion next time on how these can work together. So they definitely were feeling the same things that you were identifying. So there is real alignment between the existing Recreation, Culture and Community Development Committee and what's being outlined here. So
Counselor Booth?
Just a clarification, maybe the CAO can, so when you're talking about no committees, or that includes ad hoc committees?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay, thank you.
May I? Mayor Logo, just for clarity, and I want the public to know this for clarity. This is not disbanding committees. This is not shutting down committees. The idea here is that we're providing governance and guidance for the committees to follow. There is an appropriate process when committees are allowed to operate, mostly for providing comment to council. And then the appropriate process for the way things then go to staff and then to be accomplished. That is the reason for it.
Yeah.
Counselor Booth?
And could I make a comment? Are you going to be looking at, and I know we've talked about this before, is the education for these committees, or the orientation? We've been asking for almost a year now, and we have committees that have been formed that I don't even believe they've had their police criminal reference checks handed in. And I think it makes the township liable that we haven't given them any. We've talked about, preventing stuff in the future. We haven't given them any orientation or even checks from them. So hopefully that will be included in your report about the structures and that.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Local, absolutely. When we say comprehensive, it's going to look at all the things that really need to be before council for consideration and discussion, and make sure we have everything down in terms of how these are going to operate in the future. So.
Okay, good. Thank you. Excellent.
Further comments? All in favor? Motion's carried. Next, we have 16.1 committee reports. Be it resolved that the council of the Township of Alma-Culloden receive the following minutes for information. Recreational, Culture and Community Development Advisory Committee meeting minutes of June 26th and July 24th. The Public Library meeting minutes of July 10th and the Grafton Communal Water Committee meeting minutes of July 26th. Mover to seconder. Deputy Mayor Stover, seconder Councillor O'Neill. Any discussion? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Through your logo, I guess when I was reading the Recreation, Culture and Community Development Advisory Committee meeting minutes, when you're discussing certain things in there, what is the next step? When I look at they were looking at bathrooms at the Wicklow boat launch, and maybe hiring additional staff. I'm just wondering, does that now come forward in a report? I'm not sure what the process is for that. I think Mary Cather's going to answer it.
Go ahead, Mayor Catherine.
I think there's a two-part answer. One is to clarify exactly your question, and I think the report that we were just discussing will do that. But and we also, I'm sure the report will touch on minutes, but we had one of the committee members did the minutes the 1 month, so they've got sort of a different setup than the other months. But those were just suggestions, and that's one of the things I think needs to be looked at in terms of minutes. When are things just brainstorming, and when are the actionable items? And so I think that's one of the things that will be clarified for us. Having said that, sometimes these suggestions get carried forward, like the QR codes, which was no cost to anyone, but they've now implemented that on like posters and stuff that are being created, and very pleased with how that's progressing. So, you know, that's where a suggestion has already turned into action, but the other ones with regard to budget, they were just, here's some brainstorming ideas you might think about, but they weren't meant to be actionable items.
Yeah, because there was another one, hiring additional staff for Parks Rec and Culture Department. So I just kind of, it, and you've answered it, if it is brainstorming and maybe the minutes could reflect that. Thank you.
I think Nancy's plan on when she does a comprehensive investigation and report, that'll tell us a lot of that things. And to come back to what Greg was mentioning there 15 minutes ago about the Roseneath ACC and negotiating with that group. I think that's probably all fits into the same thing. Okay, we got a mover and a seconder, all in favor? That motion's carried. Next, we have Grafton Drinking Water System 2023 operational report for May and June. Be it resolved, the correspondence from Larry Spirea, Manager of Water Capital Projects, Lucy regarding Grafton Drinking Water System 2023 operational report, reporting period May till June 2023, we received and filed. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councillor Booth. Any discussion? Are we reporting this? Is this going to your committee first?
And it already has.
It's already.
Yeah, because these are
Okay.
from May.
Okay. Historically, they've been part of your report, but maybe you're trying to keep them separate now?
Oh, maybe, let me see. July, August.
Historically, Larry's report went to the Water Committee and then they copied it. It was part of that minutes of their meeting. But this is a different way of doing it. I don't know if it's right or wrong.
No, we've been doing this for quite some time.
Oh, have you?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, the advantage of that too, your worship, is that you see these reports quicker than, because we only meet every few months. By the time it happens and then the minutes be approved and then it comes back with Larry's thing, you'll be getting reports from January. Instead, you're getting them.
Okay, good point. It gets saves some confusion. All in favor? Motion's carried. And then we have some more from 6/17/2 Grafton Drinking Water Operational Report dated July for July and August. Be resolved that the correspondence from Larry, Manager of Water Capital Projects, Lucy, regarding the Grafton Drinking Water System 2023 operational report period July till August 2023, we received and filed. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Booth, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Booth.
I'm just wondering, and you can back me up on this, Deputy Mayor, at our last meeting, you'll see in these minutes, St. Mary's Cemetery, that Tom Bayham of Bayham Construction has, out of his own goodness of heart, has fixed the St. Mary's Cemetery. And the Water Committee was suggesting to council that we could send him a letter of thanks from town council to thank you very much for his donation.
You're going to amend your mover? Your amendment.
Well, I'll-
You add that to your
I can make a separate motion if you want. It's just, it would be proper to.
Okay.
So could I amend that to say we also send a thank you letter to Tom Bayham of Bayham Construction, thanking him for his service work at the St. Mary's Cemetery?
And who seconded that? Deputy Mayor?
Or do you want to make it separate? I can make it separate
it's
if you want. Okay.
All in favor as amended? That's carried. Be it resolved, the Township of Alnwick Alderman received Northumberland County's 2023 to 2027 Community Strategic Plan for information. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councilor Ainsworth, seconded by Councilor O'Neill. Any discussion? Go ahead. Mike?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Logo. I just wondered if the county has involved all the municipalities in this report. I mean, are they looking out for the whole county? I would assume. And if so, have they involved us? Like, do they know what we feel like, what we should have in there to promote us? And,
I would have to say that they're a separate municipality and they base their strategic plan on Northumberland themselves. So do they involve us, this council or any other councils? No, they do not.
okay, I just think they should.
Okay.
Through your Mayor Logo. Oh, sorry, Councillor O'Neill. I think inadvertently your thoughts are coming through because on this report, there's a representative from every municipality.
Yes,
So I'm sure you're bringing your insight
that's,
of what is here.
yes,
Would that be fair?
yes. At the same time, when I go to Northumberland Council, Northumberland County Council, I represent the entire council, not just, or part of all of the municipalities, not just A&H. Mary Catherine?
Just on page 13, it does outline how they engaged the overall community. And it does show here that the highest level of engagement was at the pop-ups, where they were in-person community conversations. So that actually is useful, I think, for us to know that that's how people did engage most extensively. So
Further discussion? Go ahead.
My number, 3-year Mayor Logo, my numbers are a little skewed. Page 223, the old 223, they talk about a committee and appointments to the committees. Was that the homeless?
No,
That's the
yeah.
Brighton.
that's right.
That's the next one.
17-4. Oh, okay, I'll wait till we get there then. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Next, we go on to the municipality of Brighton resolution. (17.4) A, the municipality of Brighton resolution regarding Northumberland Intermunicipal Ad Hoc Committee on Housing and Homelessness. Whereas the council of the municipality of Brighton wish to initiate an intermunicipal ad hoc committee to examine lower tier expenditures and bylaws related to homelessness, to identify opportunities for better alignment with Northumberland County housing and homelessness programs. And whereas the council of the municipality of Brighton invite participation in this group by representatives from the county's 7 lower tier municipalities and from the upper tier, the county of Northumberland. And whereas this group would report back to the respective councils before the end of 2023. Therefore, be it resolved that the Alnwick Alderman Council appoint one of its members to sit on the intermunicipal ad hoc committee. And further, be it resolved that the council direct staff to advise the municipality of the Alnwick Alderman member appointee. And I have another one there to read. Maybe we'll tie them together and then come back to it. Whereas council reviewed the resolution for the municipality of Brighton, and whereas council reviewed the draft terms of reference for the Northumberland Intermunicipal Ad Hoc Committee on housing and homelessness, we resolved that council member blank have expressed their interest in serving on this intermunicipal ad hoc committee is hereby appointed, is hereby the appointee from the council of the township of Alnwick Alderman. And further be resolved, the council will update Alderman Calderman Council regarding the work of this ad hoc committee. So I guess the first one says, do we want to get involved? Can I get a mover in a second for that? Moved by Councilor O'Neill. Second by Councilor Ainsworth. For discussion. Any discussion?
I actually think this follows up on Councillor Ainsworth's question about how to make it work between the county and the municipalities. And yes, we absolutely do have the mayor who's there representing our area, but as he's rightly points out, representing all of Northumberland County. But this allows those decisions that have, you know, I think of them like a Venn diagram where they overlap between, there's things that are the county, there's things that are tier one, that's us, but there is some overlap. And this is just an opportunity for us to say, well, what are you doing in Brighton or Port Hope or wherever in the overlap? And I think I read somewhere that this was aiming for 4 meetings a year. So I think it's to check in with one another. So I'm interested in this.
Mike, you have a comment?
Yeah, I would, excuse me. I don't know if we can get a report on how all this works. You know, if you're getting homeless people's places to stay and, you know, how they're fed, if you get them housing, who pays for that housing? And it would be nice to know that whole process before we jump into something like this. And just kind of so we know what it's all about and how it's all funded and how they're approached, you know, the painstaking thing of trying to bring them back to a home kind of thing, right? So I would, if there's any kind of a report out, but maybe there is already, I'd just like to see that, be able to read it.
Yeah, there's a whole department that handles all of this.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So why can't we see that before we make this decision that we're jumping into? It'd be nice to know the process and the funding of it all.
Well, I guess we could ask the housing manager to, our social services person to come down and explain it.
Sure.
As best they can, because it's a complicated.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nancy. You've got more experience.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Logal. So this ad hoc committee, as the name suggests, is a very finite, short-term committee. And it's being initiated by one of the 7 lower tiers, Brighton, as well as including Northumberland. So this is not a county-led initiative, but as Councillor O'Neill was saying, it's very much a situation where all 7 member municipalities in the county want to work together, presumably, to see what can be done in terms of the increasing pressures and issues and different things that communities have gone through of late. One of the, I don't really think that other than the terms of reference, which you have before you for this committee, I don't think there's anything that they've predetermined. I think it's more they want to try to do a fact-finding session amongst themselves to see, you know, what ideas can we come up with and how can we perhaps make a difference and rectify some of the issues. That was how I interpreted the Brighton resolution.
And that person, I think whoever that representative is, will be able to provide some of that information that you're looking for, Mike. As good as anybody, don't you think? Yeah. Mary Catherine?
Thank you, Mayor Logal. A 2-part thing. I actually was very fortunate because I happened to be the chair of Haldeman Court Apartments when the county was preparing all of this. So I did actually get an opportunity to work with and be part of that process as it unrolled. And so I would be happy to share that with you. And I think that's actually a benefit to say who's going to be bringing this forward. I do have a follow-up question, if I may, through to our CAO and clerk. Would you prefer this decision be postponed until we've had our discussions for the strategic plan, or they're ready to go and we can go with them? Any thoughts?
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Through you, Mayor Logal. My understanding is that this committee, the intent is to meet 4 times before the end of this calendar year.
Oh.
So I don't know that that's really an opportunity to wait.
Yes, I needed to read that closer.
I think they're looking for help right away, but anyways, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Logo. I don't see this as being part of the governance structure that
Okay,
you're talking about. I think a representative from council, if that's council's wishes, that you're a representative from this table here.
Yes, we.
yes.
So all in favor of,
Well,
this group
could-
being involved, go ahead.
Could we pick a name too at the same time to see who's interested so that we can just do it all at once and
We're gonna have to read 2 motions. Yeah, okay. Okay, who you suggesting?
Well,
Well, pardon me. I'll ask-
I would suggest, since I had the floor, I would suggest Mary Catherine because she's very interested in it, right? So for something like this and come back and keep us apprised of it unless there's 2 other counselors that want to sit
No,
on it.
I'm fine.
Mike,
No, I'm fine with that.
So
Mary
Mary
Catherine, are
Catherine,
you willing to accept this responsibility?
I would, thank you.
All right.
make it all at
All in
once.
favor of Mary Catherine's appointment? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so learn all done.
Yeah.
That's okay. Next, we go into the AMO watch file. Be it resolved, the council received the watch file newsletter from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario dated September 14th and 21st, 2023 for information. Mover and seconded. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councilor Ainsworth. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. Next, we have 17.6, the MMAH responding to the Housing Affordability Task Force recommendations. Whereas the acting CAO Fire Chief directed planning staff to review the correspondence from the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, MMAH, and prepare a report and recommendation to council regarding the ministers responding to the Housing Affordability Task Force recommendations. And whereas staff requests that the MMAH provide the Township of Allen-McCollum an extension on the ministry's deadline for responses October 16th. An extension request was denied, and whereas the minister requested that heads of council provide the information that was requested, therefore it be resolved the council received this correspondence from MMAH, and further that be it resolved that Mayor John Lowell will provide council with a copy of his letter to the MMAH at a future meeting. Moving to seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councilor Ainsworth. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. What was it, 74 different recommendations?
Yes.
Yeah.
74.
Through you, Mayor, is this something that we're going to fill out, those 5, the spots there, the questionnaire, or sorry, putting up our ideas in there? Is it something as staff that we're going to do?
Staff are preparing something for me that I have to send.
Okay,
Or planning's helping me do that. We're meeting next week.
okay,
Next Wednesday, we're gonna make sure we've got it all done.
Good.
Next, we have 17.7 Lower Trent Conservation 2024 draft budget. The Township of Allen-McCollum received the Lower Trent Conservation's 2024 draft budget letter and attachment for information and consideration during the township's 2024 budget process. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councilor Booth, seconded by Councilor Ainsworth. Any discussions? Councilor Booth.
I'll start on it first, I guess. I believe if I'm correct, I think the Rona, is her name Rhonda? Rhonda comes here before council and talks about her budget, but I got a big problem with this, reading this. This is asking for a 19% increase, which means we're going to be paying $23,247 more. And I'm sorry, I just don't buy the arguments that they're saying that several factors include the 4.9% consumers price index, increase in minimum wage, decrease in surplus funds, but then they're looking at taking 2.25 temporary employees and making them full-time. And I bring this up because this happened with last year's council too, is that I believe, and don't quote me on the numbers, but I believe Trent conservation area was very high, either 8 or 9%, and Ganaraska was like at 2 or 3%. And I can't see why every year it seems to be that Trent is double, triple what the other conservation area is asking for. So I'm hoping that council here would agree that we could ask staff to bring us back a report at the next meeting, just for a very quick comparison of, for the last 5 years, and I'm sure it could be done by the treasurer very quickly, what Ganaraska increase has been for the last 5 years and what Trent's has been for the last 5 years. So we have some numbers to look at, so that when she comes and makes a presentation, that we can, ask some big questions. I know if we as town council told the public we were increasing the taxes by 19%, none of us would be here the next time.
Thank you, Greg. Mike?
Through you, Mayor Lovell. Yeah, and Councillor Booth is right, mostly because I talked to Rhonda before we came to the meeting, and it's typically to cover those two part-time people because they're overworked. They've had their own provincial cuts, and and I agree with Councillor Booth. It's something that, like any other thing, should be negotiated, and I think that's the process that we should take with it.
Didn't I also see somewhere where it said they were actually, although they did want to add 2.5 people, some of their work was going to be expected in advance?
Was expected to be what?
Less. Some of the jobs they were going to be needing less to do.
Well, with legislation from the province, there's a lot of things that they're not responsible for anymore. I guess my one question through you, your worship, to maybe Nancy would be, I don't know how this actually works. If we don't approve of paying an extra 19%, how does that work? Do we even get a choice? Because we're one of like 6 or 7 groups that are in there, and there's municipality of Trent, which is going to be asked for almost $100,000 more increase. I can't see them being very happy with something like that either. So what happens if we vote as council to say we don't agree to a 19% increase? Does that, maybe you can answer, Nancy, I don't know.
Through you, Mayor Logal. Excellent question, and I don't actually have an answer to that. So right now, the recommended resolution is to simply receive it for information, but we can certainly, if you'd just like to move a motion and get a seconder, we can get that information and bring it back if council so chooses prior to the budget process, for information.
Go ahead, Dave.
Through you, Mayor. Nancy, then if this has a budget impact and we're required to pay, do we have representation on their board by way of committee or otherwise? That's you. So through your mayor to Councillor Ainsworth, were you consulted about this budget and were you part of the process?
Through you, Mayor Logal. Yeah, it came up at our last meeting, but it was already prepared. So there was a group of councillors that sat on a budget board committee, and this was put together, my understanding.
Through your mayor, would you be able to give the information to Nancy who was on that board, what communities they represented? And again, going back to my question, were you consulted about this budget process or during this budget process, or were you presented to?
Yeah, no, it was just presented to us. So the rest of us, so literally, I believe there was 3 on the committee, 3 or 4, I think. And so they just came back and presented it to us. So, and there was some pushback at the meeting already with it. So I'm sure they're expecting it.
Go ahead.
So could I add an amendment then? What you said, Mayor, was if we could ask staff to come back at the next meeting with a comparison of the last 5 years between both conservation things, what their annual increase has been. And what was it that you said, John? You wanted us to, can't remember now, it just,
I'd like to see it, you know, they mentioned a 19% increase, and they mentioned the 4.5 specifically, and then the 4.9, was it? Or
well, they said 4.9 for consumer price index, increase in the minimum wage for part-time staff, which I don't know how many part-time staff they have, Mike, but you know,
there's
$1.
There's a 15, all I'm saying, there's a 15% increase with no explanation. They've got one of them named, which is 4.5, but.
And actually, the amendment would be, Nancy, what you said, which was you could come back to us answering the question is what happens if we as a council say no? I don't know who seconded it, if they'd be okay with that.
That was Councillor Ainsworth.
Are you okay with that, Mike? The two amendments, they come back with the comparison and the answer is what happens if we don't want to pay.
And when did they, aren't they asking for this to be done by the middle of November so they can get their budget?
This is a draft.
Well, the funny thing is the report asks for information for us for our budget considerations, but we don't do our budget until January, but they want to know, they're doing their budget now.
And that's what catches us all a little bit every year, doesn't it?
Yeah. So basically, if you say, yes, you're committed to that number come January, that number is already in there. And I guess maybe another question, John, you could answer, Mr. Mayor, is do we have to belong to the Lower Trent Conservation Area? Is that mandatory? Or are people allowed to, if they don't agree with it, to?
I don't know, but I expect that there's something on the municipal act that says.
And I believe there's a lot of implications through you, Mayor Logal, for planning as well as some of the building issues as well, and potentially transportation, 3 that I can think of off the top of my head, certainly planning.
And it would be more than, if I may, Mayor Vogel, it would be more than what we are paying here if we have to start going and hiring our own people to do these things.
But we're paying for that.
No, but if we decided to leave
Okay. But
Lower Trent, but then you're saying you think we're mandated to use,
well, I think that if there's something special that they're doing where we ask them to give an opinion on the building plan or something like that, that they actually send us a bill for that.
do they?
That's on top of what we're paying now.
On top of.
Oh,
on
well,
top
we
of
shouldn't be doing that.
150,000 or whatever it is. Every time that you give them, you ask them for their comments, yes, you're billed for that.
Well, if that's the case, I definitely want to look into it because we're going from 122,000 to 145,000 increase. That's huge.
Do you want to get Nick and Tracy involved? You want to ask Nick and Tracy any questions, or we let Dave do that?
We could. Yeah, if you just research it for us next time you come back with it,
Yeah, and are they coming, have they asked for the delegation to council yet?
No, I don't believe so.
Don't we normally do that, right?
she usually comes in the fall and does her presentation and. Because I remember this came up last year too.
Yeah, it's come up. Many,
There's a
many
big
years.
discrepancy in both of the conservation, and I know we have more land with the Lower Trent one, but it's the percentage that I'm concerned of is if you're raising the total budget by 19% and one of them's raising it by 5%, there's a huge difference of. And I believe I know why, because when I served on Ganaraska, and this is just what I noticed, is when COVID hit with Ganaraska, they were very efficient with any part-time staff or temporary staff that they had in that. They cut them all. To try and save money because the center wasn't open, anything that they didn't have to have staff. they said, I'm sorry, you're temporary or whatever. I don't think that's happening. And Trent and Mike, maybe you can answer. It seems like they want to take these part-time people and make them full-time when a time when things should be less work for them instead of more. But that's just my opinion.
Is there any sense in proceeding with what Dave was saying about the committee and who's involved in it and whether they go?
Mayor, Mike Ainsworth, I believe, is gonna grab that information for us.
Yeah.
You're gonna get that information?
Yeah.
And you'll give that to staff and then they'll do what they think is necessary. That's good. All in favor? Motion's carried. Resolution regarding, this is 17.8, resolution regarding amendments to the Highway Traffic Act, whereas the Council of the Township of Elmwood Haldeman previously dealt with a similar resolution. Be it resolved, the council received the correspondence from the Township of Grammy and the Region of Durham regarding amendments to the Highway Traffic Act for information. Mover and seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Further discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. No, we've already done that one, Dave. We already did that 6 months ago. City of Cambridge declaring intimate partner violence, IPV and epidemic. Be it resolved, the Council of Township of Elmwood Haldeman received the resolution regarding declaring intimate partner violence, IPV and epidemic from the City of Cambridge for information. I get moving a second for that. Moved by Councilor O'Neill, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. $17.10, request for financial support from the West Northumberland Physician Recruitment and Retention Board. Be it resolved, the Council of the Township of Elmwood Haldeman, having reviewed the correspondence for request for financial support from the West Northumberland Physician Recruitment and Retention Board, hereby provide the following direction to staff. Moved by Councilor O'Neill, seconded by
Mayor Logo, I'd like to make that a motion to postpone, please, until, and bring that
I
back
think
as
a
part.
seconder on the table first. Seconded by Councilor Ainsworth. Go ahead, Councilor O'Neill.
Sorry, my motion is to motion to postpone this item and to bring it back as part of our grant discussions during budget.
Are you okay with that motion?
Through Mayor Logo, kind of, but we've had discussions on this item through budget time. Right, so, I mean, to me, it has to be a budget item, even if we're going to continue with that. That was,
Yeah,
right?
it has to be a budget item. I agree.
Yeah.
Anybody else got a comment? Councilor Booth?
I'm not sure whether Councillor O'Neill can explain it or something, but I believe in past councils, they used to come and have a 3-year deal with us or something where they would say, this is what it is for the next 3 years, and then we put it in there. This now is saying that we're going up to $9,967. So it looks like they're increasing from last year, but I would agree with
I
you.
would like to just postpone the discussion.
Okay.
If you've got questions, you can just call me, and when it comes back, I'll be prepared.
Okay.
Further comments? Councilor Ainsworth?
Through Mayor Logo, so how long are we gonna postpone it? But
Sorry, until they come back during grant discussions as part of budget, the same as they did last year, Councillor Inchwood.
okay,
All in favor? Motion's carried. Next one is 1711 Bird's Eye View Game Farm. Be it resolved, the Council of the Township of Elmwood Haldeman received the correspondence regarding Bird's Eye View Game Farm from Bruce Janinga and Jane Clausen Janinga. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Booth, second by Councillor O'Neill. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion's carried. This was added, 18.1 was added to the agenda. It's a bylaw to allow our former acting CAO clerk, Pat Kemp, to perform a civic marriage solemnization, which she had arranged to do for 2 Alma-Calderman Township residents prior to leaving the township. And the resolution reads, be it resolved that bylaw numbers 106-2023 being a bylaw to authorize the signing and execution of an agreement between the corporation of the Township of Alma-Calderman and Pat Kemp to perform a civil marriage solemnization to be read and deemed passed this 3rd day of October 2023. Did I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Booth, seconded by Councillor Ainsworth. Any discussion? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Well, I just say that I noticed in reading further, it is just for the period of 1 day.
Yes.
And I don't believe that reads like that, but it's known, so that would be, I'm good with it. It's within the Bible.
It's on the bylaw? Yeah, okay. That's in the bylaws. You heard that?
Uh-huh,
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. Number 20. Oh, announcements. Thank you. And today we start off with Councillor Mary Catherine.
All right,
Oh, notice of motion.
that's only for information. Just that the Rosemead Fair was a huge success this year. Congratulations to the Ag Society. That is volunteers coming together and pulling off a really large event. I want to commend them on continuing to make it free admission for children. And I'm going to add to that. I saw a lot of kids walking around with bags to take out on Halloween, full of information on fire safety. And it did look like they were very thrilled with that. And there were more youth and home and garden submissions than there has been for a number of years, which was wonderful to see. And just a shout out to the firefighters in general. They were there during the day with the safety trailer, and then they were there in the evening as well to support the events, and they looked professional and did a great job. And just, I did notice as I was driving down here that the fire halls are looking beautiful with the planters out front and everything, so.
Thank you, Mary Catherine. Councillor Booth.
Yeah, just a reminder that if anybody wishes to have tickets for the musical Shout Sisters, which is being put on by the library, which is on October 21st at 7 p.m. at St. George Anglican Church. It's $20 a ticket, and there's a show and then desserts afterwards. You can just come and see me. That's it. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Stover.
I'd just like again to commend the Rosemead Fair on having such a great fair. I know they had a few hiccups, and I commended Ms. Foreman on her quick turnaround and responses to get things done when there was an issue. And it was really good to see such community spirit. Councillor Booth, I have my ticket. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to attend that day. I have another event, but I have got my ticket. And I just like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. And it's going to be a good weekend. Thank you.
Councillor Ainsworth.
Through you, Mayor, I'd like to make a notice of motion, another one here today. That staff put together a red flag system on our budget. Because we've had so many overages on our budget already. The report that came to us today, there was between budgets and actuals, they were, they were over there. And so I would just like to see us have some kind of a red flag system that managers or talk to about their budget before they're getting over. Because I mean, some of it, when it's actual or it's like a budget number for the quarter, they might be over on the quarter, but they're under on the yearly one. So we really don't count it until they're over on all of it. So can we catch it earlier? So we don't get these overages all the time.
Go ahead.
I can address that in Nicole's absence, Councillor Ainsworth. And in fairness to Nicole, her and I have not been able to have our meeting, and we do have that planned for Thursday. When it comes to the quarter reporting, some things that are within the budget take up the entire budget line. They're not necessarily broken out in quarters, especially when it comes to purchasing. So that makes it a little bit misleading. There's another aspect, and that is the computer system that we're using called Keystone. I got to have a look at it yesterday, and in fairness to Nicole, I would like to meet with her before I bring that back to council. The program that we implemented here is not at the hands of Nicole, but the program that we do have, I will say, is not very up to date. So there's many things in the accounting systems that we do need to be able to do, one of which you've identified. We do need to give our senior staff access so that they can track. But we also need something that is a lot more user friendly. I was saddened to see that QuickBooks is a lot further ahead than a robust municipal program like Keystone. So we have some work to do, and it will get sorted out.
Okay.
Anything
So I guess then do I need my motion? If I can rely on that report, okay, then I'll withdraw. Thanks.
I too attended Roseneath, and it was very, very good. It was so stinking hot though, that
Dusty.
anybody who was
Dusty.
there was suffering almost, but it was much better than the snow that I've seen flying around for that as well. They had a fantastic Saturday, unbelievable Saturday. And I believe Sunday went fairly well. 42. Didn't hear the results for Sunday, but I did hear that. I also attended the Alderville National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Very well attended by lots of people that were dressed in the orange shirt day. And really, it was really lasted for about an hour and 15 minutes. There was lots of people there that were busing them in from the it was held at the medical center because they were afraid to use the road because of all the business busy with the ACC and or pardon me, the fair going on. I also attended the evening in Port Hope for the aspiring change, and they showed about half an hour, 40 minutes of they went directly to Winnipeg and showed the Museum of can't think of the right way of putting it now, but it's basically rights, freedom and rights. And they have a museum there. It's beautiful, actually. But that lasted for about half an hour. And the other portion of it, which was much better, was a panel discussion of two female First Nations ladies. One was the mother and one was the daughter. And they talked about all the things that they've been exposed to in the last several years. They didn't talk too much about missing children, but we did talk about an awful lot of other things. And what I found particularly interesting was that when a First Nation lady married her white person husband, she lost all of her
Rights.
status. And that was not the reverse. So it was very, very surprising to me. And certainly not the best way to be as far as, in my opinion. That's it, except for the proclamation. Local government week, whereas the week of October 15th to 21st is local government week in Ontario, and opportunities to reflect the vital services delivered by municipal governments, and whereas municipal governments play a vital role in helping to define the character, priorities, physical makeup, and quality of life of communities across Ontario. Now therefore be it resolved that I, John Logan, on behalf of the Council of the Township of Alton, do hereby join with partners such as the Ontario Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario in acknowledging and celebrating the work of local municipalities by proclaiming October 15th to 21st, 2023 as Local Government Week. Signed by myself, dated October 3rd, and thank you very much for putting that together. That was very well written. Well, thank you, Yolanda. I loved it. Perfect. And the next one is a proclamation, Child Care Worker and Early Childhood Education Appreciation Day. This is on October 17th, 2023, and whereas years of research confirms the benefits of high quality childcare for young children's intellectual, emotional, social, and physical development and later life outcomes, and whereas child care promotes the well-being of children in response to the needs of parents and the broader community by supporting quality of life so that citizens can fully participate in and contribute to the economic and social life of their community. And whereas training and knowledgeable early childhood educators and child care staff are the key to quality in early learning and child care programs and champions for children. Now therefore be resolved that I, John Logal, on behalf of the Council of Township of Allenwood Haldimand, do hereby proclaim October 17th to be Child Care Worker and Early Childhood Education Appreciation Day in recognition of the education, dedication, and commitment of child workers to children, their families, and quality of life in the community. Dated October 3rd, 2023. And is that the purple day too? That's, oh, okay. Yeah, that would be mistaken if that's stuff. Council Resolution 22-1, bylaw number 105, 2023. Being bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular council session and closed session held on Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023. Be it resolved that bylaw 105-2023 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular session and closed session of council held on October 3rd, 2023 be read and deemed passed this third day of October 2023. Mover and seconder. Moved by Council Rainsworth, seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover. All in favor? Motion's carried. And finally, motion to adjourn and be it resolved that the regular council meeting of Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023 be adjourned at 4:38 p.m. Mover and seconded, moved by Councilor O'Neill, seconded by Councilor Ainsworth. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to people